Hello, hello. Hey everyone, as we're joining, why don't you throw in the chat what you're drinking? And where are you joining us from too? We'd love to see where you're joining us from. Oh, Marco's here. I need to be in big gallery view so I can see all of your gorgeous faces. Hey Marco, hey Marco. Hey, how you doing?
Oh my God. Good, running ragged.
Everyone, Marco is the master distiller from Charbay, so you'll be hearing from him today.
Hey, buddy.
We have everyone else on mute, but hey, Vicky from Nebraska. Yeah, everyone, as you're joining, why don't you let us know where you're joining from? Yes, I see some Racer 5, awesome. And let us know what you're drinking, throw it in the chat. We'll talk about how to use all this crazy technology in a minute, but the chat should be at the bottom of your screen. Yes, James, I love that Racer 5. Hey, Roger.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
What's up, Roger?
What's up, buddy?
Everyone, Roger is our brewmaster from Republic Brewing. We're super stoked to have him and Marco here.
Yeah, thanks for being here, both of you guys.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have one. I'm just gonna have one glass tonight.
I got the white and the Charbay.
Yeah.
Nice. Love to see that, Daniel. Thanks. Kel is from Maryland. Ooh, Vicky's drinking sangria. Cha-cha-cha.
All right, all right.
We threw a poll up there, so if you see the poll, we would love to hear if you've heard of this kind of and tried this craft beer into craft whiskey trend before and what you think of it. And also what you're drinking.
Yeah.
We'd love to know if you're actually joining and drinking Racer 5 and Charbay along with us. I see quite a few of you are, which is awesome. Or if you're drinking something else. Oh, I see. I think that's a Nika coffee whiskey up there. Cool, cool.
Yep. Some wine. All
Love
right.
it.
Some Cuvée Song wine.
Go.
Yeah. Awesome. You gonna throw that up there? So I can see all their pretty faces on a bigger screen.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I feel like we have a good amount of people here. We have a couple of pages worth of people. Yes, we're thrilled to have all of you. So we would love it if as you're joining, you could throw in the chat where you're joining from and what you're drinking and take the poll and all that good stuff. Because we definitely want this to be interactive. We don't want it just to be myself, Marco, Roger, and Evan talking the whole time. Although I know at least a few of us are talkers, so we probably could fill the space. So we're gonna do a quick intro and kind of give you some tech tips and things of that nature as well, because I know Zoom is a little new for some people, and we want to make sure that you know how to use all the Zoom tools because they really will help you engage and be part of the conversation and ask your questions and be heard and all that kind of good stuff. And that's what we want. So we're going to do a quick little tutorial there, do a few house rules, and then we're going to
dive right in because I think that these guys have a lot of cool stuff that they'd like to share with us, and we want to give them enough time to say all the wonderful information they want to share with us, and then also have time for you guys to, ask questions and, share your experiences with their products.
Yeah, because how often do you get to talk to the master distiller of Charbay and the master brewer of,
Fair Republic.
Republic. It's pretty freaking cool. All right, so we are here doing these virtual tastings, partially because, we're all in a situation that's making us get creative with how to connect and enjoy each other. But we're also doing them because we really want to support craft makers. So I'm the founder, I'm Suzanne, everyone. I am the founder of the Crafty Cask, whose sole mission is celebrating and supporting craft alcohol makers. And I do that through helping them with marketing and teaching them about marketing. And then I also do that through Meet the Maker events, where consumers and people like you get to kind of hang out with the makers and rub elbows and try their good stuff. And then content and education and all that fun stuff.
And I'm Evan. I'm a certified sommelier and cider professional. I've spent the last 10 years doing cider or wine tours primarily, but I'm an equal opportunity drinker, and
for sure,
I've definitely learned a lot of cool stuff hanging out with Suzanne. And so we thought that this was a great way to kind of combine both of our passions and interests and continue to support the producers that we've been supporting prior to all this. So thank you so much for being here. We really hope that you enjoy yourself and that you want to join us and attend some more of these in the future.
Yeah, and we do have a whole calendar of events on our website, so definitely make sure to go check it out at thecraftycast.com right under events. Next week, we're doing a pet nat cider tasting, which is going to be super fun with Eden Ciders from Vermont and Botanist and Barrel in North Carolina.
The following week is gin from 1-8 Distillery in DC and the Simple Goodness Sisters Garden to Glass syrups.
Yeah.
They're kind of pre-made cocktail syrups that are made from wholesome ingredients and
let you be a bartender at home.
Yeah, super fun.
Yeah, and then we have wine coming up and mezcal coming up.
Yeah.
So we have all sorts of good, fun stuff. Yes, Marco, show us your R5.
So that's kind of what we're about and a little bit about us. Let's do a little cheers here. If everybody, yeah, thank you, Marco. That was a good suggestion. If everybody wouldn't mind, just raise your glass up to the camera so we can all see there.
Yes, love that.
Very cool.
Cheers, everyone. All right, so before we jump in fully to the fun, let's just do a few quick little tech tips and tricks so we can make sure that we hear all you guys, we see all of you guys, all that fun stuff. So best experience is often from a computer. So if you're on a mobile phone, totally cool. But if you're having some issues and you have a computer around, it tends to all work a little better there. If you're on the computer, gallery view is the way to go. So if you go to the top right of your screen right there, there's kind of a 9 grid. And once you put it in the 9 grid, you'll see lots more people. And that's more fun because it feels like more of a party. And you can scroll the screen over to the right to see even more people. We'd love to see your faces. So if your video is off, we encourage you to turn it on so we can see your beautiful faces. And then on the bottom right, there's some things down there. So there's more to the bottom right where you can see the names of all the participants, which is super cool. So you can actually see who's here and if you know anyone and if your friends are here and all that good stuff. From that participant screen, you can also chat directly with them and direct message with them and kind of talk to them about what's going on without everyone else seeing it. That's also where you can talk to us. So if you need anything, we're trying to keep an eye on it the best we can. The best way to get our attention, though, is to do the little raise hand thing. And so you can kind of raise your hand and then it'll put a little blue hand right next to your name. And we love when you use that because that lets us know to give you some space and say, hey, unmute yourself. Tell us what you have to say. Talk to Marco, talk to Roger, all that good stuff. So make sure to use that raise hand function if you want to break in, especially with me. I'm a talker. And otherwise, though, you can ask questions in the chat if you don't want to come on video, and we'll kind of make sure we try to get all those answers in there for you. Let's see. We'll be sending out an email with some details afterwards, where to buy, how to buy online. We'll also throw some of those things in the chat as we go. And then, you know, that's really what this is all about. The best way to show support to Charbay and Bear Republic and us right now is really through buying some booze and getting some of that delicious booze. If you don't have it here to drink with us today, getting some afterwards so that you can support Charbay and Bear Republic and you can try this cool stuff that we're tasting here tonight. But if you're not drinking Charbay or Bear Republic with us tonight, that's okay too. It's still a great time to learn and engage and have some fun.
Got some people drinking wine, some people drinking other types of whiskey and beer, sangria.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us despite not having the prescribed tipple of choice for the evening. We're happy to have you and hopefully you're inspired to go out and find these wonderful products that we'll be talking about tonight.
For sure. You want to do house rules real quick?
Sure. So yeah, we want to encourage you to engage and interact and have fun. Please use that hand raise feature. As we mentioned, we got quite a few people here tonight. So as opposed to just unmuting yourself, we'll be happy to call attention to you so you can, you know, speak your comment or ask your question verbally if you'd so choose, or if you'd like us to just ask that to, you know, whoever's speaking at the time. We're happy to do that too. please be kind and courteous. Dissent and debate are fun. We never debate, so this is the only time we get to debate.
Never.
Zero tolerance for hate speech and bullying and degrading comments and things of that nature. So yeah, we want you to talk, and we want everybody to have an opportunity to talk, but we don't want you to talk over one another. So let's try and keep a modicum of congeniality and I guess
Fun.
Yeah, and fun. So yeah, let's get started here. We're focusing on two great products tonight. We've got the Racer 5 IPA and the R5 whiskey from Bear Republic and Charbay, respectively. And I don't know, do we want to just send it over to these guys now?
I'd love to give a little introduction first, since so Marco and Jenny. So Jenny, Marco, I'm assuming Jenny's with the kids tonight. Thumbs up, yeah. So Marco and Jenny, oh wait, hold on, Marco, let me unmute you here.
Okay.
Go ahead, Marco, what were you saying?
Yeah, you've got that right. That's why it's so quiet back here.
Yeah.
He's with the kids.
So Marco and Jenny have two adorable kids, and they, whenever I've been up to Charbay, often they are kind of hanging out in the distillery, and we're indoctrinating the kids as early as we can. So this 13 generation family distillers continues to go on. So for those of you who don't know about Charbay, they are 13 generations of family distillers, which is awesome. Like 13 generations is a crazy amount of time, and it goes all the way back to Serbia. So his father's father, however many fathers that is, all the way back in Serbia, they were distilling. And at that time, it was really just more a way of life. Necessarily, when it started, it wasn't even necessarily a job. And it was part of the, yeah, it was a living, exactly. It was part of the community. You kind of traded things. And so distilling has been in Marco's blood forever. And his father came over here to the States and kind of founded Charbay and founded this amazing winery and distillery. And, it's been just gangbusters ever since. And that was back in 1983. So they have a really kind of epic, amazing story. And then Bear Republic also has a really epic story. And again, it's a father and son kind of family endeavor.
Third and fourth generation Sonoma County residents.
Yeah, and they're right up the street from each other, which is also kind of cool. And so Bear Republic has been around since 1995 and was, early on that craft beer scene and early with capturing our hearts and minds of realizing that there's better beer out there than maybe what we were getting access to at the time. And so do you want to play that, the quick video while I finish up talking? So,
of course.
So I know Jenny and Marco really well, and I've done some work with them with newsletters and, kind of some marketing stuff, because that's the way I roll, is I try to get the word out more about people I love. And we did an actual video about this topic and really kind of, yeah, exactly. It's a little choppy. Is it choppy for everyone? But anyways, it's just some visuals from when we went out. So we went up and visited with Charbay and with Bear Republic, and Marco came over with us to Bear Republic, and we did a whole video on what we're going to talk about today, which is this trend. That's Miles, Marco's dad. He is awesome and a character and someone you just want to hang out with and talk to forever. Maybe unless you're his kids. And so we went out and, did this great video to talk about this whole trend of distilling craft beer into craft whiskey. And it's been around for quite a long time, actually. It's become a really hot trend lately, especially as the craft beer scene has really blown up in the craft whiskey scene. But it's been around for a long time. And so Marco, honestly, is one of probably the earliest distillers, if not the earliest distiller in the United States to do this. And it's a really nice partnership, because it basically is like Marco loved Racer 5 and thought it was a rad beer and was like, I bet this would make an amazing whiskey. Because for those of you who aren't super familiar with the whiskey making process, which I know Marco will probably talk a little bit about today, so every whiskey is technically made from beer, but it's made from an unfinished beer. It hasn't necessarily been hopped. It hasn't been aged. It hasn't been any of that fun stuff that makes it the delicious kind of thing in our glass that we love. None of that's been done to it. So it's kind of an unfinished beer that then you distill and turn into whiskey. And so that's true of all whiskey. But the interesting thing about this trend is, you know, it's kind of like that idea of junk in, junk out, right? The better your input is, the better your output's going to be. And so it's like, if you can raise that bar for what you're putting into the still and what you're concentrating down by taking the water out, essentially. So it's basically, you're taking the water out of this beer and just leaving that deliciousness behind. And so, you know, what's better than that?
Sure. Start with good and end with good.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is certainly one of the most heralded beers in the United States. Multiple award-winning. It was at 2006. Bear Republic was the craft distilling, or I'm sorry, the craft brewery of the country. Yeah, and, you know, understandably, why wouldn't Marco want to take something like that and use it as his base product?
And I know there's also a kind of fun story that Rich, the co-founder, has told me before about coming up with Racer 5 beer as well. And that it, I think I had somewhere in my notes that he said it was his best mistake. So maybe we'll hear a little bit about how his best mistake turned into this delicious beer that we all enjoy and love today. Yeah, so that's kind of the overview of what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to start with introducing both Roger and Marco real quick. And then I'd love to start with the base ingredient, which is our Racer 5 beer. And Roger can kind of tell us a little bit about Racer 5 and also, you know, brewing this beer. And while he's talking, we'll throw up a few more visuals to kind of help you feel like you're at the brewery and there. And we'll do the same when we move over to Marco too. But before we jump in, does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want to unmute themselves real quick and say something?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right.
Marco, just excited to see you, buddy. I miss you. So,
Everyone, this is Rich.
Yeah.
and this is Roger's show tonight, by the way, guys. Roger's the
Okay.
Bear Republic's
Defer to
brewmaster.
Roger.
So
Yeah.
Roger Herbst. So about a year and a half ago or so, my father retired and I took over as president, and now I have the title of founding brewmaster. I'm not sure what that really means. It's just that semi-retired, and so Roger flies the Starship now. I've been promoted to admiral, so.
Yeah, Roger.
Here you go, Roger. So that's about all I'm going to say. I'm going to enjoy all this. If you have any questions, you can fire them off, but Roger's the man. And Dan, that looks really comfy too. That I didn't know you had the chair like that, buddy.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have the sweet setup, Roger.
I couldn't find my velvet smoking jacket, but other than that, I'm doing all right.
And so just so everyone knows real quick, for those of you who don't know, Rich is the co-founder. Him and his father kind of started this up. So we're very honored to have Rich here as well, and other members of the Bear Republic team too.
That one? Fuck, I don't know. It's the day I was buying that shit at the. Get the fuck. It wasn't. When's the last time you saw me fucking price?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry, Roger. You just got muted inadvertently. We're getting to you. Hold on. Technical difficulties. Here we go. I got it. Sorry, Roger. Okay, go.
Yeah, no worries. First off, I want to say I think this is actually a really cool thing. I mean, we're all enduring some pretty unique circumstances, but this is actually really, really cool. It's really cool to see all these faces.
Totally.
And, you know, we're all kind of doing a shared experience, just separate. So thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I've been with Bear Republic now for going on, this will be year 13 with the company. And I started out as a shift brewer. And I, you know, worked with raw materials and worked with Rich and Peter, who's our master brewer, now COO, and eventually became the quality manager, now the brewmaster. But, you know, just thinking about the relationship we've had with Marco and Charbay, I remember the first time I met Marco, I was given this crazy recipe to brew on our little pilot system that we had in Cloverdale. And I'm like, what's with all this corn? You know, what exactly are we trying to do here? Why do I have to get all these different strains of yeast? And we had these tiny little tanks. And then I, met Marco. It was like, okay, we're doing this distillery project. And then many moons later, having the finished product was really neat. And that was right around the time we started doing R5 with Marco. And this was really a blast to see, everything that we do to choose the best raw materials, whether that's barley malt or the crystal malt that we use in Racer, or all the time we spend up in Yakima looking at hops, evaluating different lots, choosing those things. And we think, hey, the epitome of this is Racer 5, it's condensed there. But, walking into the distillery when Marco's running that through the still, you get different layers of what we do. And it's really neat to see it disassembled and reassembled into this other product. So, Racer 5, as you alluded to, is Rich's.
Yeah, tell us the Racer 5 story. Tell us how it came to be.
So yeah, the company was founded in 1995. They started brewing late 95, early 96, and it was early in 1996 that they were brewing a batch of what was the pub's house IPA. And Rich, they were brewing a lot of beer and, kind of getting things laid out. And Rich accidentally grabbed the hops that were for Red Rocket, which is a heavily hopped red ale. And so he added that to the tank and was like, well, we like the hops that are in here, let's amp it up a bit. And it immediately became the most popular beer in the tap room. And really the rest is history. That was 1996.
And we all wish we could make mistakes like that, right? That turned into.
But the thing is, in 1996, nobody really knew what to do with a beer like this. I mean, it's super aggressively hopped. It arguably defined the style of West Coast IPA. And for a real long time, it was like the hoppiest beer on the street. And, times change, things evolve, but, Racer 5 is still one of the top regarded West Coast IPAs. And I think
for sure.
Good reason. So can you guys still hear me? I'm seeing a weird microphone issue on my.
No, we can still hear you. You're good. And I just saw Roger pop in there, and I was gonna, sorry, not you, Roger. I think, was Peter gonna join us tonight? Because I remember last time I met Peter, I think he was telling me a story about how when he first tasted Racer 5, I think he was at the brewery with his family, and he tasted this. And he's like, man, they make really good beer, but this thing ain't going nowhere. This is too much. It's too much. Now he works with you guys and was
on board.
Yeah. So I feel like you're right. I feel like even people who now, are the first time they tasted it back then, they were like, what are these guys doing? This is crazy. And now look at us.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's the last 20 years of beer have been a real wild ride, and we're still riding the lightning. But the thing that brought me into Bear Republic that I really loved about it as an outsider, and then the last 12 years of being with the company, is the care that everybody puts into every step of the process, whether that's raw materials. We spend what could seem like an absurd amount of time on hops. We'll take 2 or 3 trips up to Yakima during the harvest time. We spend a lot of time adjusting our hop blend based on analytical data. We rub the hops, we smell the hops, we talk about them, we fight over them, and then we come up with the blend for that harvest year. And it's really a fun process to be a part of. And you know, I think we make a great product, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm really, really proud of the partnership that we've got with Marco, you know, talking with him, working with him to make sure that we're sending him Racer 5 bottle ready. But, you know, we do have some conversations about making it the best way to run through the still and all that stuff, because it's not a filtered beer. You know, there's still yeast in it. There's still hop essential oils, and that can make things fun from a process point of view when you're gonna heat it back up and work through it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty fascinating. So, do you, and maybe in some ways, adjust the Racer 5 that is destined for Charbay?
It's really more about yeast count.
Okay.
It's the same kind of thing as looking at you know, making sure you've got some yeast left in the bottle for stability. But we over the 10 years we've been doing this with Marco, we've had some technical changes in the brewery as well, adding a centrifuge, adding a bigger centrifuge. And so it's just a fine balance of you know, the technical aspects of making beer, and then getting the right product down the road. You know, the other thing is that you know, beer is a agricultural product, really, and every time we have a crop change, whether that's barley malt, or, you know, we obtain barley from different places around the country, and some from Canada, and you know, you have different varying protein levels, different soluble protein levels. There's other things like beta glucans that can wreak havoc on, you know, lautering into the kettle, or haze in the bottle, and that stuff works downstream as well for Marco's process, and it's fun to learn a little bit from him about what he sees and what we see. So
Yeah, for sure. We have a couple of questions coming in. I'm encouraging everyone to ask some questions, because again, how often do you get to talk to a brewmaster and like hang out with them, right? So Jim, if you want to unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to ask your question, or I can ask it for you. Let's see if I can unmute you. Here we go, Jim. Go ahead and ask your question, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
He said ask it for me.
Oh, he's asking for you. I got it. So we have, how do you keep the same taste with a beer from harvest season to harvest? So, you know, we are all really familiar with this concept from wine, but with beer, like, how does that impact things? The, you know, grains from one year to the grains to another year, if it's dry, if it's wet?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And you know, we can have some things that are less flavor oriented that we have to adjust for. I talked a little bit about protein levels and beta glucan, and we had a year, I believe we started seeing it in 2012, which means it was the 2011 Canadian barley harvest. We started seeing a what we called a snow globe effect, or a wavy gravy. And it turned out that weather conditions in Alberta and some process changes in the malt house meant that we needed to adjust brew house procedures, finding procedures to have clear beer. You know, the more fun flavor adjustments are things like hops, and that really is why we spend so much time evaluating hop lots, going up to Yakima, talking to growers, and we actually hand select every lot of hops that goes into Racer 5. And we try to go in blind and not look at things like the, you know, alpha acid of the hops or things like that. We try to just look at it purely from a sensory point of view, and then we kind of take a step back and we'll look at whatever analysis they may have done at that point, which is usually pretty little. But we've gotten very, very good at selecting basically Racer 5 Cascade, Racer 5 Centennial, Racer 5 Chinook, and that's just through experience. But we have had, and this was in 2013, normally it's a crew of us that'll go up to Yakima. It'll typically be Rich, myself, Peter, and then we'll have like Rob, who's our head brewer up in Cloverdale, or Big Joe, who I think is also on here. But for this particular trip, we were only going up to select one hop, and it was just Rich and I, and we both thought this hop was really great. And we both said to each other, it's not quite the normal one. Yeah, Rich is running his hands through his hair right now. But we got back and we're like, everything went great. And then we got the hops 3 months later after they'd been pelletized and we got through the previous crop year. And we started brewing with it, and we almost immediately noticed a more intense, what we call a diesel character, which is kind of a sulfury compound.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the big, you should have let me come along, or, I should have been there, from Peter. And so we actually went back to our hop merchant and asked to look at some different varieties, or different lots of that same variety, so that we could get it back into Racer 5 spec. But all of it is rubbing the hops, smelling the hops, and brewing with the hops. And we do try to feather things in, so when a crop changes, it's not an abrupt shift. It tapers in, but it's smell, taste, and some analytical work.
Roger, I know a lot of focus, of course, by virtue of the fact that IPAs have a delicious, focused, hoppy kind of characteristic. Do you have a similar, focus and level of quality control? I'm imagining you do for your barley. And do you malt your own barley? How does the malt side of things work for Bear Republic?
So we don't malt our own barley. We have worked with some very small scale maltsters for pilot batches and that kind of thing. But we contract. I mean, barley is a commodity, but malting barley is the top of the top of barley. And so we work with several suppliers that are very, very well known. And with every single load that we get in, whether it's in a 50-pound bag or whether it's a 50,000-pound truck, we'll get a COA with that, a certificate of analysis. And depending on the type of malt, it can be a 30-point analysis or maybe a 15-point. For our base malt, it's actually the longest analysis because it can have the biggest impact downstream. So we look at we're specifying a range of characteristics that are okay, and then we really key in on each truckload or bag delivery and say, what are the critical things that we need to look at? And that tends to be beta glucan, protein, and we do look at color. If something goes off with color, that you can usually tell that maybe the maltster is trying to do something to adjust some other physical characteristic of the barley, because
Interesting.
Yeah. So because barley really is made twice. It's made once in the field and once in the malt house, and both of those have an impact.
I'm just going to take this opportunity to make a shameless plug for a company that I feel very proud of, coming from Arizona.
Yeah.
There's a malt house in Arizona called Sinawa Malts, and their goal is to reduce the amount of water that's being taken out of the watershed in Arizona. And since barley is something that's harvested earlier, they pay people that choose to farm and grow barley top dollar for their barley, with the contingency and the stipulation that they don't plant anything else in that field after harvesting the barley in the summer, when the water table is the lowest and there's the least amount of water available, so that the desert environment there has the water available to the other plants. Sinawa Malts, if you're looking for another small malt house that's making some really great malted barley.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great Arizona kind of Arizona wilderness brewing, and like are all kind of
uses it.
We're all kind of getting on board with trying to support, like, yikes, we live in the desert. Beer uses a lot of water. We need more water, right? So it's kind of a nice full
Anyway,
circle. Yeah.
brief sidebar.
Yeah. Water usage is a big factor in malt production, for sure, not just growing it. So
Yeah, for sure. So everyone, whoever's drinking Racer 5, I'd love for you to give Roger a cheers up to your camera. Yes. Little, or Bear Republic especially, but you know, cheers, Roger. Thank you for
cheers,
teaching
guys.
us.
Thank you, Roger.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Roger, can you hear
Cheers.
me? Sorry.
Cheers.
Mhm.
Oh, I was gonna say Racer 5 was my dad's favorite beer. Like forever, we would just have a shit ton of Racer 5 in his fridge. And he passed away yesterday or a year ago, so I'm just like, it makes me happy to even be talking about this now. Thank you for making amazing beer.
Yeah, that's really nice. One of the things we've talked about in the brewery a lot is that everybody that drinks Racer 5 tends to have like a Racer 5 story, and that's really one of the cool things about having a beer that's you know, both new but also has been around for a while. Thank you for sharing that. That's cool.
Thanks, Heather.
Roger, we had one other question. Lisa, do you want to hop on and share what you were asking?
Yeah, I think she's moving towards her computer. I see her moving. Maybe I can beat her to the mute.
Oh, you got it. Roger,
It
we had
was
one other
my question.
Oh, okay, Lisa, do you want to
Go
hop
for it,
on
Sterling.
and
Hi, I'm Sterling.
Really?
Oh yeah. What was the question? Okay, correct. So you said you modified the beer batch by adding hops, was it, to make the whiskey? Or what?
So the R5 whiskey is made with ready to go Racer 5. So rather than going into bottles, it goes into a truck, and once it's on the truck, Marco's calling me saying, "Where's that truck?" So we can unload it into his tank and start distilling.
Oh, nice. So it's not modified at all. All right, cool. Nice.
Yep.
Nice. And then Daniel, I'm unmuting you. You got a question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask kind of what they just said on the trucks. So you guys don't normally deliver beer that way. So did you guys buy a special, like, I've seen the pictures that Marco's had of the tanker, but was that specially made, or did you guys have that?
The beauty of being in wine country is there's lots and lots of tanker trucks driving all over the place all the time.
Okay.
So we've got our choice of companies and trucks to go out there. So yeah, they're sanitary stainless trucks. They come with a sanitation certificate, and they're all food grade. And they come out, and we pump them full just as fast as we can and get them on their way.
And how many gallons did you send Charbay?
We send about 6,000 gallons at a go.
Wow.
So yeah, we do our best to maximize the allowable weight on that trailer. It's about 6,000 gallons. So for us, that's four batches of beer.
I like that. Okay, thank you. It's great.
Yeah.
I think Matt had a question next. Matt, did you unmute yourself?
Hi, yeah, it's Matt Masseri here from just outside Philadelphia. This is great. Thanks for doing this. I had a question on the process. Is there any advantage to starting with a higher ABV beer, like a Cafe Racer 15 versus Racer 5?
Great question.
Marco, you want to unmute yourself and chime in there? Maybe I'll beat you to it. Hold on.
I got him.
I gotcha. Go ahead, Marco.
Oh, hell yeah, it does, Matt. I mean, the more alcohol you have in your starting beer, the more alcohol that we're able to collect out of the still. When we're distilling beer, it's usually about 10-to-1 reduction. So a 6,000 gallon tanker that we get from Bear Republic is going to turn into 600 gallons of 140 proof. Now, that's at about 7-8%. So if you go up to 13-14%, which would be dreamy, but you know, that's not beer. That's not in the beer zone. you would have a lot more alcohol recovery. That's why like grapes and wine at 13-14%, you have a 6-to-1 reduction. So that means you get even more.
Cool.
Yeah, we've been working with Brew Republic the last couple of years on some custom distillation projects to get a straight a no hopped version of beer as well, because there's a lot of people that want straight malt whiskey as well, and you get that up to like 9%, and you get a beer that's 9% versus 6%, and all of a sudden there's a huge difference. I mean, you get 6% to 7%, and I can see a difference. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference if you're looking to capture the alcohol and put it in the barrel. The higher the alcohol, the more alcohol you have to recover.
For sure.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Joseph, did you have a question?
Hi, this is Jeremy Joseph. Maybe you met
Jeremy
me.
Joseph. Sorry, I'm getting confused.
No worries. Thank you guys for putting this on. It's great. Yeah, I just wanted to share a quick story. You mentioned people having moments with Racer 5. I definitely had one of those pinnacle moments for me. I just moved to California in 2004, and I'll never forget, I went to the bar. It was called the Village Idiot, and I had a Racer 5 IPA. I had a Racer 5 IPA, and it was the first IPA I'd ever had. And it just, I mean, my life has legitimately been changed. IPAs are my favorite beer. And Racer 5 is like what set me in that direction. It was just like so mind-blowing at the time. So I'm really happy to have had the chance to hear this and be involved. So thank you guys.
That is super cool, dude. That's super cool.
Man.
Yeah, man, Jeremy,
Yeah,
that's like going from like 0 to 100, man. That's like kind of like, I've never had an IPA before. Let me go in there and just jump on in.
All the way.
I think I did the same actually with IPA, and it did the opposite for me. It made me think I didn't like IPAs for a very long time. So my first IPA I ever had was Sierra Nevada, and I was like immediately rejecting IPAs for a very long time. Rich,
Rich just raising his hand too.
Rich, you want to jump in?
I don't know if I'm muted or not.
No, you're good. We can hear you.
Good.
Okay, so I had this day where I really needed to understand what the distiller's recipe would be for a Manhattan. That's my question.
Ooh, interesting. We could all learn from this. What's the distiller's recipe for a Manhattan, Marco?
R5, and I don't have a bottle of it, but I love Antica Carpano vermouth.
Yep.
And I like to go strong on the whiskey and just give it a bump, just to dirty it up just a little bit with the Antica Carpano. So I like 4-to-1. So 4 parts R5, 1 part Antica, and then a Luxardo cherry. There's a huge difference with Luxardo cherries versus any other of the cherries that are out there. But you go 4-to-1, or you can go 3-to-1 too, no problem. But yeah.
These are the cherries you want.
Yeah. There you go.
100%.
Yeah.
Marco, have you ever cured your own cherries? Done that in brandy or anything like that?
Just in the glass.
Yeah. Usually I'll put up cherries in brandy, and they'll last a good long time. I'll do some big quart jars, and when the kids need to go to bed, I'll put it on their ice cream.
Nice. I took some Luxardos and I drained the juice out of it, and then I soaked them in R5 whiskey.
Nice.
And we did that for the Autumn Food and Wine Festival up in North Star, and we were making Manhattans for about 900 people, and needless to say, we took the gold on that one.
So Roger, we should try to make sure that we get Bill from Steiner to get us some of those cherries that go to Japan that are very special, just to make some fun little stuff.
I think that's this week.
I like this brainstorming going on here. I like
Yeah,
it.
cherries are coming
Beer,
up pretty
whiskey,
soon.
cocktails.
Cherries.
That's great. Hey, Marco. Well, before I toss it over to you and have you tell a little bit of the Charbay story and Racer or R5 and how that came to be, should we do a quick kind of comparison for those of you who have both? Because someone did message me and ask the question because they don't have both, and they asked, like, I imagine the whiskey tastes a lot like the beer. Is that true? And so I would love, you know, maybe Marco and Roger and Evan with your sommelier background to kind of talk about.
And Rich, yeah, chime in
And
as
Rich,
well.
yeah, like talk about the experience when we taste the beer and then we taste the whiskey. Anyone jump in?
Yeah, I mean, when you've got the beer and it's the fresh beer. You got the Racer 5, and then when we distill it, we are boiling off the alcohol. We're collecting the alcohol as steam. It condensates into distillate, and so whatever is alcohol soluble, like essential oils, the hop oils, and some of the malt flavors from the 2-row malted barley, those are coming over. Now there's a lot of components to beers that are water soluble, and the water soluble parts of the beer don't come over as much, and it's mostly an alcohol soluble flavor profile that you're getting from the beer. And then once you take that clear distillate, you do taste the malt, you do taste the hops. And then we can we've had it we've bottled, like Dan Burrow's he's got a bottle of the R5 clear, some of the clear that we did in the very beginning from 2010, and that stuff's wild because it's the purest form of concentrated Racer 5 that you can get right there. But then once you put it in the barrel.
So Marco, wait, when you say clear, is it unaged?
Aged in stainless and aged in glass, and everything ages.
Yeah, look at, hold on, Daniel, stay there for a minute. I'm gonna
Yeah.
spotlight you if I can find you.
Yeah, Dan Burrow's right over there.
There we go. Hold on, I'm gonna spotlight
I
you.
try to keep myself in the regular and the double and twisted, so that way this is only special occasions. Once in a while, you just feel like this. It's so clean. And you get that little bit of bright citrus from the hops and stuff. Yeah. And you don't get, I'm a bourbon guy mostly, so I love the aging in the oak, and even I know Marco has told me, since it's used, you even get a little bit of fruit from the wine. But with this, it's like you almost get that pure hoppy, malty notes, the citrus and the caramely notes.
There's nothing else. There's nothing else there but pure Racer 5 concentrated distilled. Yeah.
Daniel, I'm so jealous. We're supposed to be making other people jealous here who aren't drinking what we're drinking, and you're making us jealous.
Well, that's all I got left, Marco. So.
Oh no!
Is there no such thing anymore?
Come on over, Dan. You know what? Roger and I, we just. What was that, Roger? Was that was that in 2018 or 2019? Where we got an amazing opportunity to get a tanker from Bear Republic that they took the Racer 5 IPA, they added enzymes and dried it out and fermented it again extra, and because there were some sugars that were unfermentable in there, and they dried it out and fermented it again. And then they took it, and then we got it, and it is just, it's amazing. And Jenny was like, "You had better put some in the tank and save that, because we're gonna bottle that clear." Like, okay. Yeah. And this stuff is wild.
Yeah, what Marco's talking about is, when you're making beer, you've got a bunch of residual unfermentable sugars that are unfermentable by regular brewer's yeast, and there are enzymes that are in the malted barley that convert the starch into sugar, and you can add more of those enzymes or maybe more targeted enzymes and break down all the longer chain dextrins that give beer body and mouthfeel. Not really sweetness. They're sugars, but they don't really have a sweetness. They're just mouthfeel. And so you can break those down into sugars that the yeast will ferment right up. And so you can turn a 7.5% alcohol beer into a 9.5 or 10% alcohol beer. And you don't maybe you don't want to go get some of that because it's going to be firewater, but when you actually distill it, it's.
I'll be right back.
Hey.
He's like, let me go get a sample here.
Yeah.
Hey, Roger, there was a question that came in that I think I know the answer to, but I'm actually curious about too. Could you do the reverse? Could you make a beer out of R5 whiskey?
So it's funny that you say that. Really, the thing that I'll say about that is that I really enjoy Racer 5 with R5.
Yes.
Boilermaker.
Yeah, you got it. So yeah, that's actually, it's kind of,
Do that to yours.
I'm glad Marco's not here right now because, you know, you're taking something that he's crafted and, you know,
We're going to do it too.
But
You're inspiring us.
It's amazing. And especially with the barrel age stuff, because you do get that oaky component in with the beer. But
high proof beer.
Now, Roger, have you guys experimented with aging your beers in used spirits barrels? And would that be a possibility with, like, you know, aging R5 aging Racer 5 in a used barrel that was used to age R5?
We haven't, you know, shockingly, in the 10 years, Marco, that we've been doing this, we have not done that. But what we did do is, and this was probably about 8 or 9 years ago, we had a run where we bought some barrels, brand new oak barrels, and we had more than what we needed for a spirits project. And so Marco used them for some Charbay rum. And that was, number one, it's my favorite rum that I've ever had. Number two, it's made one of my favorite barrel aged beers that I've ever had. And it was a 2 barrel, so about 60 gallons times 2, so about 120 gallons of beer. And it was a beer that was based on molasses and a lot of dark malts, and we called it Pirate Stout. And we aged it in those rum barrels, and it was like graham cracker, molasses, rummy. It was amazing. It was
yum.
Cool.
I think I've got a bottle that I may or may not have side filled down in my garage that I've been hiding. But Rich,
What?
I didn't know. I forgot Rich was here. Never mind. I don't know anything about that bottle.
Share. You must share.
Yeah. But we've done other spirits aging, but now that you bring it up, we should get some R5 barrels down here.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
We're just going to say we want to be part of the quality control of that.
Yeah.
This conversation. Cool. So Marco, talk to us a little bit about, now that you were talking about kind of doing the two, but like when you taste the whiskey, and Roger too, what are you tasting from the beer? Like what's and Evan, you're a sommelier, you have a palate.
I mean, I feel like the fun thing about this for me is that the R5 has this levity to it. And also, you know, of course, since it's beer and since it's lighter ABV and since it's carbonated, the texture is starkly different. And I feel like the texture and the weight and the mouthfeel and those components of these that are starkly different is really what I enjoy about tasting them back and forth. And I unfortunately can't do this because
Yeah, fine.
this
mine.
Oh yeah, here. Because
Sharing.
you know, it's neat, like the citrus component of the R5 or of the Racer 5 kind of transmutes in this glass in the R5 and becomes more of like the, I don't know, like the zest of citrus as opposed to like the juice of citrus. And I guess that follows because it's more of the oils that remain where the water kind of components gravitate a little bit away. I don't know. That's kind of my experience with these two, and one of the things I like about them together.
If I'm raising my hand.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the question for Marco: when he's sitting around and distilling and seeing what flavors are coming out, there's an aroma. I've experienced it. My question would be is how are you choosing to capture that? What are you doing? Where do you start? Where do you begin? There's so many finite things that I will tell you that are based upon the distiller. So Marco, I'm just wanted to give you a platform to talk about it, because the reality is that I can make a great beer. Roger can make a great beer. Peter can, Rob, but we give it to a fellow craftsman and then you go with it. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marco,
I'd like to layer one more thing on that real quick.
Yeah.
I spent several hours with Marco one time when he was running our Big Bear Stout into his S. And during those hours, it's one thing to imagine something intellectually,
Yes,
but
Marco,
to smell those layers coming off the still where it's fractionalized, each individual component of the beer. And so really, I would almost argue that Marco's got a tougher job because he's disassembling a beverage that has been crafted, and then he's got to reassemble it into something that's new. And so, yeah, that's what I want to hear, Marco, is when you're doing that, how does that work for you?
Teach me, Padawan.
Yeah, the type of still that we use is a cognac still, and it's a very slow process. But the beauty of that being so slow is that everything has a certain boiling point. Everything has a certain time when it's going to boil in the still and come over. Fusel oils are higher boiling point alcohols. Those won't come over in the beginning of the run. The aldehydes and the top notes, the really small, delicate top notes of fruit and will come over in the beginning. So you've got a rainbow of flavors, and everything is fractionating, like Roger said. When it hits a certain temperature, poof, it's vaporizing and it's traveling out of the still. So minute by minute by minute by minute by minute by hour, this distillate is coming off the pipe, tasting. It's different every single minute almost. Sometimes in the beginning, it's extremely different. And so you got to pick and choose, what are we looking for? And then with 6,000 gallons of it, you've got multiple runs of it. And the way we run our still, we're collecting heads and tails, and we're separating those out and collecting the hearts, and then we're taking the heads and tails and distilling those with the beer. So we're concentrating the heads and the tails, and every single whiskey run is completely different. So then you have to balance it out and figure out, I want this, I want this, I want this, and I want this, and you put it all together. And then, are you going to distill this and drink it clear like Dan is, or are we going to barrel age it for, there's a barrel R5 2010 standing over there, it's just 10 years on its way. As the distillate comes off the pipe, I'm tasting and smelling, and there's no recipe. I'm doing every cut by myself. Sometimes my dad comes in and helps, and it's an art, and it's a balancing act of heads and tails. How much heads do I want in the hearts? How much tails do I want in the hearts to make this thing balance out? And Then you've got 4 different whiskey runs to do in a 6,000 gallon tanker. And then you got to balance those whiskey runs so that when they come all together, bam, you've got everything balanced out. And you just have to be there and taste it. I mean, sometimes I run 24 hours a day when I'm running the still, and I'm sitting here in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's like 3 in the afternoon, sometimes like 4 in the morning or whatever. And there it is. And I'm just plugging away, waiting for it, tasting what's coming off the pipe, tasting what's in the collection tank, and it's completely different. And then once there's a certain point where all of a sudden it starts to go woo, and drops like a rock. The alcohol content starts dropping, and you got to catch that, because then your fusel oils are coming in. You don't want too much oiliness. You got to balance it out, and it's a contact sport running that thing.
So Marco, speaking of, there was one question coming in earlier about, I think one of you mentioned terpenes and they didn't know what that was, but also as you're talking about heads and tails, for people who are a little bit less familiar with distilling, can you explain a little bit? Because I personally feel like that's one of the ways I kind of define craft versus non-craft. I feel like the big guys out there, they push a button, they know the temperature, they know the time period, and like it just like goes. And craft is more about tasting and feeling and like really like checking in as a human. And the heads and the tails are a big piece of that. So can you explain some of those like more technical details of distilling?
Yeah, I mean, what we do is we use a Charbay cognac still made by the Brew family. And it gives you as the distiller the best ability to pick and choose the best part of the run as your heart. Then as more water's coming over and less alcohol is coming over, so your proof is going lower and lower throughout the one single run, how much of that do you want to run into the hearts tank? And how much of that do you want to go into the tails tank? That's experience in running the still and knowing what you want to do and predicting what, what do I want to do with this spirit in 1 month, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So,
and there's also some like kind of danger in doing it too, right? Which is why home distilling isn't necessarily legal. Because like there are some things where it's like if you get too much of the tails or too much of the heads and like all that like that's not good either. So there's some actual skill in terms of what the boundaries are.
Well, yeah, it takes time to create your style of distillation as a person. My dad, he wants to run it lower. He likes more oiliness. He likes more full body. He likes to collect more of the tails than I do. I like to collect more of the heads and balance it out with tails. And I like it a little cleaner. He likes it a little dirtier, everybody, I mean, we all would make different cuts based on our mood, time of the day, what happened yesterday, what's happening tomorrow, what's your mood, what time is it, is this the 14th run that you just did 24 hours a day, or are you just starting fresh? I mean, everything is coming together, and you got to be there because the still's going to run. There's no automation. It's just coming out, and if you miss it, you're hosed.
Marco, what does that look like when you're separating the heads and the hearts and the tails? What does that look like for you when you're blending those back together in the next run? How do you do that? Is it like volumetric, or you just make a call?
No, it's taste and smell. I mean, you start a batch of beer. You got Racer 5. You got 600 gallons of Racer 5 beer in the still. It takes about an hour and a half to get 600 gallons up to boil. Then it's cruising speed, and we're just letting it simmer, and we're pulling the alcohol off. We're pulling the vapor off the still super slow, and flavors are pouring out. in the very beginning in the heads, those are the most delicate, the top notes, the lowest boiling point, top note flavors. And you're going to taste and smell when those are what you want to cut. And you just got to be there.
Yeah.
And once, it's almost like you're using heads to kind of set the pace or you know, set the tone of the whole run. You know, you're starting out with heads. It's the highest proof. It's the most delicate top notes. Sometimes if there's aldehydes, like nail polish remover flavors, those are going to come out in the heads, and you want to remove those from the hearts. But since we use your beer and it's so goddamn badass and fresh, there is no aldehydes to use. So I don't have very many heads to cut. And
I just gotta say that my for me the what can be an off flavor, that acid aldehyde is the worst thing. There are certain beers where that's the characteristic, and I immediately get the headache right there, like 30 seconds in. So yeah.
Well, that would,
thanks for cutting those out.
You got to cut those out, and then you're tasting and smelling, and you can smell it, and then you can taste it, and then all of a sudden it snaps clean. It just tastes clean. It's like, yep, there we go. Switch, cut the heads, go to hearts, and now I go to bed because I know I've got 4 hours of run.
So is there a similar realization as the hearts are tapering off, that you're getting into the parts of the tails that you don't want, and you're going to make that second cut?
Yeah, well, then at the end of the hearts run, which is their lower alcohol percentage coming off the pipe, higher boiling point, bigger molecules are vaporizing, bigger molecules of alcohol are vaporizing. Then it's like, how much of that do you want? And now, the most critical part of distilling, I think, if you're doing double distillation with a still, is determining and creating the heart out of the beer. Because if you mess up making the hearts and you add too much fusel oils you let it run too long in the hearts, and then all the fusel oils are pumped in there, now you've got an unbalanced heart run. You've got a ton of fusel oils. You've got nothing to balance it out, and that distillate's going to be oily, too oily. And if you collect too much hearts and not enough tails, now you got a super sharp distillate, and that's not good too. So it is a balancing act. It's like making a vinaigrette. You got too much olive oil in your vinaigrette, it's going to be oily, and too much vinegar, it's going to be sharp. That's the same thing that's happening, as you're making the head, as you're making the hearts. And once you're, at the end of the heart run, you do see the flavor changing, and it's like, okay, it's changing, but what is that's going into the hearts now? It's body. So tails are important for body.
Right.
How much tails do you want in the body? And that's a balancing act between how much heads did you have in the hearts. So it just comes down to experience and time, and knowing that I know this is what I want to do, and you got to wait for it to happen, and you got to be awake when it happens.
Yeah, I know from heading up there a few times that Marco has a cot that he just pulls into the distillery and just kind of hangs out next to the still when the still's running, because it doesn't make sense to go home. Yeah.
2 alarms. I used to, when I was growing up, my mom and dad started Charbay in '83. I was 10. And so I slept on the floor. I slept on whatever. I slept on, we had a couch back then. But then, you know, my dad was sleeping in the bed in the office, in the bedroom right there. And yeah, it was crazy, but you're up all hours of the night, all hours of the day. You know, my dad taught me, you know, you just run 24 hours a day and you don't stop until you're done. And
Marco, can you talk a little bit about the uniqueness of your still? Because not all stills are that way, right? So let me go back to this picture here of the still.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of stills that you can kind of set it and forget it. So this isn't all distillers are doing this. So talk a little bit about how unique your still is.
It's a piece of art.
That thing is, I mean, that middle piece right there, it's called a preheater. It's like, man, it does not have to be like an hourglass alambic, you know, but it could have been a square or something. But that's the French for you. That right there is a RH Poulot Cognac Charente pot still with a live fire. The alambic is the bulb or the onion head on top of the still on the left side.
The kind of copper
yeah,
looking thing? Yeah.
Pure copper, mined in Argentina, and then brought over to Europe and plated, and then they take it to Cognac, and the Poulot family turns them into stills. So that's the onion head, and then just above that's called the swan's neck, and then that highest point right there, from there on out, it's all downhill for the steam. And that middle part is called a preheater. So when it's cold out, you can put the next batch of beer in there when you have 17 runs to do, and that will, you can flip a valve and then the steam will actually run through the preheater and then go to the big tank on the right. That's the condenser. The tank is on the condenser on the right. And what that does is it preheats the next batch of beer or wine. And instead of taking 2 hours at 1,000,000 BTU, it only takes me 1 hour at 1,000,000 BTU to get this pot up to steam, up to speed. Then you got a 9-hour run. So, I mean, it's the middle part is the preheater. Do you need it? No, but if you've got 18 runs and 4 whiskey runs, that's 22 runs. It saves an hour of time every run. Oh, you just saved 22 hours, you know, and you just saved them, you know, millions of BTU. So it's for efficiency. So then the steam travels over the condenser where we got a 3-inch copper pipe, 180 feet long. It's like the length of 3 Freightliners in a coil, submersed in water that we're adding through that big funnel. And the steam travels inside the coil. The water around the coil cools the pipe, actually transfers the heat from the steam. And when you have a decrease in temperature with a gas, it drops down, it condenses back down to a liquid state, and it comes out clear, distilled distillate. And this is what you use on your secondary distillations in Cognac, France, to make cognac. This is a 25 hectoliter still, and you have to use this size for your secondary, your Brûlé or your Herbst distillation to make cognac. And so back in the day, that's what my dad bought, because my family is a copper pot distilling family. So he bought this, which was amazing, and we started making brandy with it.
So wasn't it at the time, wasn't it only one of like 3 in the US?
Yeah.
That's like this, or is it still, or what's the?
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot more alambics in the US now.
Well, and so what's the benefit of using this kind of a still for non-cognac versus the other types of stills that are out there that are probably more familiar to a lot of people?
Well, there's this type of still, which is it's a copper alambic Charente, which means live fire pot still. And then there's a hybrid still, which is a copper pot, and it has a column strapped on top of it. So instead of the onion head, it's got a column with plates in it, and that's more to get higher proof distillate to come off the still. So this technology right here hasn't really changed for about 3,500 years. You know, it works really well. And
hey Marco, is it accurate to say that the still that you have is really a polishing still, and so you've got finer control over both the beginning runs and the second runs?
I guess you could call it that. I mean, in Cognac France, this is the size of still that you must use in order to call your distillate cognac. Yeah. If you don't use this size and you use a bigger still, then you're making Esprit de Cognac. And Miles, a goofball.
The whole fam.
Yeah, they were running around the distillery today. So as you're running super slow, you're able to taste and smell different fractions. I mean, there's so many fractions. It's through time that is coming through that you're able to taste. Like, how much of this do you like the taste and smell of the distillate that's coming off the pipe? You know, that's a fundamental question right there. And if you do, let it run. If you don't, well, why don't you like it? Why don't I like it? Well, I don't like it because it's more fusel oils, more higher boiling point alcohols are coming through. But I know that if I taste what's in the tank, it needs that because that is the body of the distillate. And if you don't collect the heads, if you don't collect tails in the hearts tank, you have no structure. You just have the heads and the hearts. You've got no body, and then you just have a distillate that has no finish. It flashes and then falls, and then you've got no finish. So where you get your finish is by letting the tails run to a point in the hearts tank, but not too much.
Balance.
Love it.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So, Marco, tell us a little bit about these other two products too, because they have Bear Republic beers in them as well. So Double and Twisted and your hop flavored whiskey S, because these also kind of have Bear Republic going on.
So we were running Racer 5, for a couple of years, and I think I texted Roger and I was like, hey, are you guys making any Big Bear Stout anytime soon? Because Racer 5 is awesome, and Big Bear Stout is a very different, there's a large contrast between, Racer 5 and Big Bear Black Stout. So I know that it's going to make a totally different whiskey.
Totally.
And so, Rich and everybody over there, they're like, yeah, we can do a tanker, a stout. And I'm like, sweet. And I told my dad, and he freaked out. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? He doesn't like surprise. Like, hey, I just got 6,000 gallons of stout from Bear Republic, Dad. How cool is that? What are you talking about? But, well, everything, distills down. It's 10-to-1, so if you're distilling this, you're focusing on these flavors, and this stout is delicious, and so it's complex. I think there's 6 different roasted and toasted barley malts in Big Bear.
Heavily, very layered. I mean, and this is the case for a lot of the recipes from the Republic, is very layered.
Yeah.
Bunch really dark crystal, different roasted barleys.
Yeah.
And you could, and that's the one that I was in the distillery for, and getting every fraction throughout the process. I walked in at one point and it was like straight up Oreo cookies.
Yeah.
Magic.
Oh man, it is fun. So we're distilling that, and then we made the distillate, and that is good, really clear too. I have like 10 gallons from a 2011 run that I aged in stainless steel. Still have it, but we put that in French oak, and the French oak offers clove, nutmeg, cinnamon, vanillins, smoky toastedness to it. And then you compound the flavor profile of all those different roasted and toasted barley malts from the Big Bear Black Stout. It's just, you're adding spice on spice, and then it's so good. So we bottled it. You know, when I talked to the TTB, I'm like, hey, can I put Big Bear Black Stout whiskey? They're like, no, Marco, you can't do that.
Of course not.
God damn it. So
You can't clearly explain to consumers what's in the bottle.
yeah,
No.
there's to be no commingling between brewery and distilleries. I'm like, oh,
Right.
come on, what are you talking about? I'm using their beer, for Christ's sakes, you know?
Right.
So I'm like, can I put S on the label? You know, and they're like, yeah, you can do that. I'm like, okay, S stands for stout. Christ, you know? But, you know, that's the way it is. And so we have that. And my dad and I we went up to a buddy's fishing lodge in Alaska. And we were there and fishing stuff and smoking cigars, and I brought some stout with me, and you know, he's sitting there and like, I gotta tell you, this is probably the best distillate you've ever made. And I'm like,
Yes.
Who said that?
you know, there's like a bear over there, you know, there's nobody else around and stuff. I'm like, fuck, I think that was a goddamn compliment, you know? Like, this is amazing, you know? It was great. He loves it. And yeah, I love the stout too. I haven't done one in a while, and it's probably time to get back and do some. But man, so we've been barrel aging that, and through the years we've done some straight malt, no hopped whiskeys from Bear Republic beers. So they just make a great beer without any hops for us, and we barrel aged that. And then we also made a Czech style Pilsner at Bear Republic, and we distilled that, and that tastes different than Racer 5, and that tastes different than Stout. So then we have all those barrel aging, and let's blend them together and come up with the doubled and twisted. So the D&T that you've got right there, yeah,
Which is my all-time favorite. It lives in my like fancy decanter. It's the only whiskey that goes in my fancy decanter.
We actually poured it back into
We
this
poured it back
bottle
into here from the fancy decanter.
decanter.
And I keep the empty bottle because I have to make sure I can show people what it is.
Oh, thank you.
You guys, if you haven't had this, it's like chocolatey
It's
and
glorious.
like it's just like mind-blowingly
It's
good.
all over the place. It's got
They all are. The
it's
Racer
got-
5 is all like everything's delicious, but
but
Sorry, which whiskey is this?
This
Sorry.
is
doubled and twisted.
Doubled and
lot number
Twisted.
2.
and it was actually Marco's kind of thesis to getting his dad's like seal of approval, like, okay, son, you're a distiller now. This
Yeah.
is kind of your thesis, right?
Yeah, the ability to meet and exceed your instructor is the definition of master distiller in my family. It's not just, hey, you're running the still, congratulations, you're the master distiller because you're in the house. You know, no, you know, for now 13 generations, we've collected the information and the knowledge from our instructors, moms, dads, uncles, and kept it in the family and kept it going. And then my dad said, not only do you have to make something as good or better than me, but you got to release something in the market that's not been released before in our family. I'm like, oh, wow.
And probably that actually sells, right?
And after 13 generations, you guys have probably made a lot of different things.
Yeah. But we never did whiskey before, so I was like, hey, it's no brainer for me.
Right.
So yeah, so I made doubled and twisted, and then we brought it back. The first version was clear because I wanted to make an eau de vie. I wanted to showcase the beer. I wanted to showcase the still. I wanted to showcase my cuts. when you make a clear distillate, there's no hiding behind with the barrels in there. And yeah, that's the original D&T right there. I just took a picture. That's the pipe going into the pre-strainer right off the pipe of the condenser. And at 160 proof, distillate has a certain twist to it. It's got a really lightness to it, so the gravitational pull of the earth like spins it around a certain way. I'm like, son of a bitch, there it is. And like, click, I took a picture with my phone camera. I'm like, that's gonna be my label.
Very professional.
Absolutely, yeah.
How many hours of sleep were you on at that point?
Maybe like not much.
Sure.
Maybe like 3 hours, 4 hours a day for days. And so we did that. We aged it in stainless for 4 years, and then I released it, for 5 years, 4 years, 4 years, and then released it in 2009. Aged it in 4 years for stainless. And man, it was tasty. And so I told my dad, hey, we're selling D&T. And he's like, congratulations, you're a goddamn master distiller. I'm like, hey, there you go. It took 26 years, but that's okay, So Jenny and I wanted to we wanted to make a blend of all these different Republic whiskeys that we were making, And so we took the Pilsner, we took some stout, we took some straight malt that we've been distilling, and we put it all together, and we're trying to think up of a name or something to call, like, what are we going to call this? Because we want to do it 90 proof, because we've always done 99 proof or full barrel strength. We want to do 90 proof, and let's make it so it's not through the stratosphere on price point. And so I was like, well, let's bring back Doubled and Twisted. And there it is.
Cool. Hey, it looks like we have a question from Russ. Russ, do you want to unmute yourself? I can unmute you too. Let's see. Russ, go for it.
Hey, Marco.
Hey, Russ.
How you doing?
Not bad now.
I want to give you my 2 cents about Charbay and my experience with Marco.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yes, please.
I came out there 25 years ago, and I met Marco and his dad, and I told him that my grandmother was Serbian, and we had a little connection, and we did a lot of tasting and a lot of good stuff, and I had a blast. And then about 5 years later, I brought a bunch of friends out, and when we came up to the gate, I hit the button. I said, we wanted to come in and taste and see people. And they were like, sorry, we're not doing anything today. And I said, I'm the guy that was here 5 years ago, and my grandmother's Serbian. And they were like, oh, yeah, we remember you. Come on up.
Never mind, we're open for you.
And we went up and we tasted a ton of stuff, and we got a lot of walnut brandy out of that trip. That was the special of the day. And for Christmas last year, I got all those people together, and I live in Ohio, and it took a lot of work, but I got us several bottles of D&T, and we had a pretty nice Christmas here in Ohio.
Oh, right on.
I bet. How could you not with that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And I am a massive Marco fan, and I am begging him to come to Ohio one of these days and get some stuff, and we'll have a little party, and people will see there's a real person, because when I tell the story, nobody believes me that I know somebody out there that makes the stuff I keep buying, and I keep drinking lots of vodka and lots of D&T.
Oh man, thanks, man.
I love it. Marco and the family, and I'm a big endorser.
Well, let's get over this damn Corona and figure that out, man. Jeez.
Yeah, and Russ, man, in the meanwhile, if you want to do a private virtual tasting for you and your friends, like let's make that happen. We can do this, right? Like if nothing else. So
yeah, we sure could. We could probably get, now that I've learned about, I didn't know about this until about 2 weeks ago because I never had to, but all those guys that we brought out there that last time, Marco, are all they're all doctors. So we're all doing a lot of virtual stuff and going to the hospital every day.
Telehealth is big right now. Yeah.
If we get through this thing, okay, sounds like we need to have a big virtual party and see how much Charbay we can get down.
Yes, love that.
And Bear Republic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing the stout with the twisted,
you know,
it's so
double
fun.
fisty. You gotta have one of each.
That's right.
A Boilermaker.
For sure.
That's the ultimate Boilermaker.
Is the Racer 5 here in Columbus, Ohio?
You know, we're going to send out the Find It Near
yeah.
You link afterwards. But Roger, do you know, we also had a question earlier about Maine, if you have an idea if it's in Maine as well.
I don't think we're in Maine. I'm not super savvy on all the locations, but I will say on our website, we've got we call it the Bear Tracker, and you can put in your zip code and you can find retailers that have bought in the last 60 days.
Cool.
But I know that we've got we do have Ohio distribution. Yep. We tend to be in major metro areas primarily, but yeah, go to our website. Otherwise,
we just put it in the chat too, so the link to go there is in the chat right there.
In the chat box you can find the director to.
Yeah, and you can always shoot us an email, info@Bear Republic, and we will get back to you. For
Russ,
sure.
next time I come out to race at Mid-Ohio, I'll let you know. I don't know how far you are away from Mid-Ohio, but if you're not that far, then I'll come see you.
I live in California.
I'm about 20 minutes from Mid-Ohio.
Perfect. So we'll put something in the trailer next time we come out. So I just have to show you this because Marco gave this to me when we started making D&T together, and I was really proud of this bad boy. I don't know how many were made, but I think I got 1 or 2 of them.
I think we only made 4.
You know, all the money I spent there, you'd think I would have got some kind of.
You were 1 bottle away.
Yeah.
This was a concept thing right here. Concept, man.
I haven't even got a keychain. I'm going to have to come back out there.
Russ, come on, man. Yeah, come on up.
Hey, we have one more question here from Daniel. I unmuted you, Daniel. Go ahead. Jump on in.
I can't get Racer 5 even in Chicago anymore at most places.
Oh, man, Dan.
There was a big distribution problem or something.
Blasphemy.
You know, I would sell it to you in a 5-gallon bucket if I could. But I'm not allowed to sell a single thing, you know, that way. And distribution in Illinois for us is quite the challenge, unfortunately. But let me talk to Jenny and see what's up, because we have a distributor there now, and let me see if they have some D&T.
And Daniel, write your statesperson. Write write your member of Congress. Write your representative.
Yeah, I will.
Take place.
And be like, this is bullshit.
It's
democracy.
Keeping me going during this time.
Let them know that it's keeping you off the street and stopping the revolution.
I need my Racer 5.
And I also, Marco, you said you haven't made stout in how long?
Ooh, it's been a couple of years, Dan. 12, 13. Wow, it's probably been about 5 years, actually.
Okay.
I'm just thinking.
We're here for you.
We need some more of that.
We're ready for you, Marco.
All right.
I remember
it's time.
My first taste was
bring it back.
You brought a bottle to tailgating when we went to the Bears game.
Oh yeah,
buddy. It was
the
first time I tasted. You said, "Look at this new." And 8 in the morning in the parking lot at Soldier Field, we drank it by about 9. It was gone, I think.
That was proper. That was rad. The Bears they won, right?
No, they lost.
Definitely.
Oh,
100%. No doubt.
The
All right,
winners
guys,
are
we're
our
gonna
hearts.
do a quick wrap up for anyone who wants to hang out longer. We are happy to hang out longer. Last time we were on here until like 11 p.m. honestly.
It was absurd.
So we're happy to hang out longer and keep chit-chatting booze and like hanging out. But for those of you who have to leave, because we said this was going to be 90 minutes, first we want to do a huge thank you to Marco and Roger and Rich and all of the makers who are joining us tonight. Everyone, let's raise a glass and
Thank
do
you
another
so
quick
much.
cheers. Cheers, guys. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, helping us get smart about this stuff, helping us want to drink more of it.
thanks, yeah, you know,
Informative
I gotta say too, I mean,
Thank
it's such I just feel so honored to be able to work with Bear Republic because, you know, the whole Norgrove family, working with Roger, working with Big Joe, working with the guys there. I mean, it's just like, they are so amazing and knowledgeable and fun to work with. I mean, it's just it's a dream come true for me. It's a real honor. I love them.
Thank you, Marco.
Yeah, man.
100%, buddy. Right
I love
back
you
at you.
guys. You know, love you guys. I mean, it's real. I mean,
Yeah.
we wouldn't I wouldn't have this stack if I didn't know you guys. Come on.
Love you, brother.
Yeah, I love you.
Yeah,
man.
Joe.
So let's figure out what to do with that Scottish pot still. We'll just leave it at that, right? Have on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so for everyone,
Hit it up.
everyone, if you had a good time tonight, please support our featured makers. We'll be sending out an email afterwards that has where you can buy Charbay and Bear Republic online, but also their finders, so you can find it locally near you.
Tell your friends about them too.
Yeah, give them a shout out on social media, share a picture from tonight if you took one, a screenshot or whatever, tell them that you had a good time, and give Charbay and Racer 5 and the Crafty Cask if you want a shout out. And lastly, if you had a great time tonight and you feel like tipping your hosts, so we can keep doing these for free for all of you.
We love you.
You can do so on Venmo. We're at the Crafty Cask on Venmo. And, you know, we'd of course love any social media shout outs, reviews, all that kind of good stuff too. And tell your friends. And next week, next week we're doing a Pet Nat cider tasting. So we have Eden and Botanist and Barrel, and that's going to be super fun. And for those of you who think you don't like cider, if you like beer, these Pet Nat ciders are kind of funky and kind of fun. And I challenge you to give them a whirl.
Yeah.
So we're doing these every Thursday right now at 6 p.m. Honestly, we have enough makers signed up that we might start doing them more frequently.
Woohoo!
And so support craft makers, do what you can. This is a hard time for all of us, for sure. So stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane while you're like cooped up inside with your animals and your significant other and your kids and all that good stuff.
And if you recognize and appreciate the value in what we're doing, please share it. Share it as directly and indirectly as you can and as you see fit, because the more people recognize the opportunity to support the people and the producers like Marco, like Roger, like Rich, that are making this social isolation manageable, bearable in ways. It's great to be able to give back in whatever way you can.
And we'd love to build this community so that honestly we can keep doing these even after this coronavirus pandemic is over, because it's nice to be able to visit with your distillers and visit with your brewers and visit places from afar. And with online sales and things of that nature, it's possible to do. And so we're hoping to build a big enough community that we all just like hanging out together on Thursday nights, and we want to like learn something new about some other booze and support some more craft makers. So,
yeah, props to you guys as an audience. Thank you for being so engaging and participatory and having questions. You're the best.
Yeah. We appreciate you. We love you.
Guys, thanks for letting us learn. This is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll hang out here for a little while if anyone wants to just
Right on, Dan.
Feel free to sign off. And we love you and appreciate you being here.
Super cool format. It's really fun. I miss these guys because I haven't seen even some of my coworkers for a month.
This was fantastic, guys. Just thank you. From a consumer, this was great.
Oh, right on.
James, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey guys, like I love you. Thank you so much for everything tonight. This was
Awesome.
just
So glad you were here.
totally
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Hey, listen.
it's funny, you mentioned that, like, we haven't seen some of our friends except for virtually. We see our friends virtually now
More
a lot
often
more than we did in real
person,
life.
which is crazy. Which tells us there's something to this whole virtual thing. Instead of being like, we're all so busy, we're all so like disconnected, we all have to do our shit. It's just like, we could just cook dinner while we throw up a Zoom. Like,
Yeah.
why not? You know?
I gotta say, it was a really funny feeling, like signing off of a work meeting and then having 2 minutes to switch over to the couch to do that. Like the commute time is reduced by just exponential amount.
Roger, yeah, our team, we've been doing this. We finally figured out how to do it as a company. Very important. It's really good.
Good.
It is. My computer died in the middle of it, and then I had to switch to my phone. I was like, oh shit.
Thank you for your
The other thing
dedication.
to throw out there,
Honestly,
guys,
a lot of people would have
is,
given up there, but
No, not at
Yeah.
all. Cheers, you guys. Cheers so much.
Cheers.
James, where are
Thank
you?
you
Where
for
are you
everything.
located, James?
yeah.
Healdsburg.
Healdsburg. Oh, nice. You're local. Cool.
I'm Healdsburg. I'm right down the street. I live right down the street from the old Healdsburg location.
Cool. Nice. That's right.
Come back someday. Like, yeah, we'll be there someday. We'll
I
do
know.
it.
I know we will.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Jennifer,
Hey,
you guys
just,
have been
I just want to
in
throw a
Canada
shout
over there.
out.
Where are you joining from? I'm going to unmute you. Where are you?
I just want to shout out to, I mean, we've got brewers that are still working, packaging folks that are still working.
Right on.
Marco's making hand sanitizer. You know, we're all, you know, very thankful for the folks that are still doing the jobs that get things done on the ground and you know.
Oh, yeah, Marco, I just saw that picture as well. Yeah, I mean, thank you to everyone who's still doing what they're doing to get us the delicious products that we want, because, you know, you're all still, a lot of people are still working. And Marco, I know, show that picture again real quick. I should have pulled one together. I didn't grab the right picture, but so Marco's been working tirelessly day and night to make hand sanitizer. So Charbay does have hand sanitizer that you can buy online. This is actually one of the things that the craft distilling community has really, I mean, that's why they're considered essential right now, is because they can all make hand sanitizer on the fly. I don't really understand why the hand sanitizer companies can't scale up and make it on the fly, but that's another conversation.
Marco, throw that up again.
We're selling. We're actually we're shipping some up to Alaska to the Sitka Fire Department right now.
Yeah.
One gallon.
Amazing.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, Marco. I know you and Jenny have been working tirelessly to figure all this out and get it out there. If you go on the Charbay website, you can order some. They have the smaller kind of personal size ones as well.
Well, we do 5 gallon carboys too, because I've always had a fantasy of selling something in a 5 gallon bucket to anybody, you know. And, you know, and he's like, no one's gonna buy the 5 gallon. No one's gonna buy the 5 gallon. I'm like, well, fuck, I don't care. This fucking cool. And I can sell
5 gallon buckets of hand sanitizer.
It doesn't matter. I can sell 5 gallon.
That they're making through the distillery
not a big deal.
at Charbay,
French oak or American oak?
Healdsburg,
Your
but I
hand
think a little
sanitizer.
more towards Napa.
Hey, Daniel, I saw you had your hand raised. Did
Spring
you
Mountain.
say?
Oh, so that's how you know the driver.
Or Jay, I see
I
your
don't know
hand.
why I was thinking they
You guys
were
are all
from like
unmuted,
some
so
other
go ahead and
region, and I was thinking, how do you know the
Evan,
driver?
Evan, he's
What is that?
adorable.
And so
Yeah.
smart.
Anyway,
A
you guys
little
have been great.
wife?
This has been
No,
wonderful.
I don't
Thank you
know.
guys
They're
for everything. I really appreciate it.
What a treat. It's nice to see you all and be able to hang out. I mean, thank you.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you all.
Really.
Bye. You have a
Wonderful.
nice weekend. Look at Rich's nice lineup there. Love it. We have some of your California IPA in the fridge too.
Night, y'all.
All right.
Hey,
Good
thanks
night.
for being here, guys. We really appreciate it. Our guests,
Thank
so
you,
much
thank you.
obligation. I
Yeah,
really,
thank you.
it means the world to us that you're willing to take some time and be with us here tonight. Thank you.
And Marco, give Jenny a big hug for me. And Rich, if you're listening, beer. I don't know if you are. I want some more of your son's cured sausages that he's making.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God! Have you tried those?
Oh my God, they're so
Yeah.
good. Rich,
Yeah.
are you here? You have to tell us about these.
Okay,
sausages.
now I feel like I'm in on somebody else's thing. It was
It's
nice
a-
to meet you guys. I'm looking forward to talking to you again. I'll catch you later.
We're talking about
James.
food sausage, to be clear.
Sausage.
I know. No, I know.
Leftover,
The spent whey.
the spent whey, and like,
From Racer 5 beer.
they're putting it into sausage.
Well, they're
Oh.
feeding the pigs with it.
Oh, that's right.
They're feeding the pigs with it and making
Okay.
like hopped, like
Ooh, like a Kobayashi beef, but pork.
So good.
It's so good. So I already told Rich we got a little free sample of it when his son was kind of playing around with it, and then I was like, dude, where do I get more of this immediately? This is the best charcuterie I've ever had.
It's really good.
There's like
Oh,
a hot
shit.
one. There's a
Like
Thai
curry,
chili.
Yeah, like
or
an Indian
curry
curry
one.
one.
Oh, you guys.
Yeah, these two.
I don't-
these
I don't-
two, these
I
two
don't know if
siblings
Rich is
are
still
more
here.
than people deserve. Between
Yeah,
the
we-
Roger.
I don't know if Rich is still around, but yeah, Rich's son raised pigs on bare spent grain and yeast, and did a really cool project on it. And then a local company called Journeyman Meats made
Oh,
all the
yeah.
charcuterie.
Yeah, on like downtown Healdsburg.
Downtown Healdsburg. Yep.
Yeah, Journeyman Meats, totally.
Yep. And
Are they
they're
still doing
legit.
it, or is that
Are
a
you guys
experiment
selling
kind of
those,
ended?
Roger?
What's that, buddy?
Are you selling those now? I mean,
Bear Republic is not selling them,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure about the commercial availability. I think
Yeah.
it's all still in the
It's
trial
seriously
phase.
like the best charcuterie I've had.
It's super
Yeah.
good.
Of course it is.
oh.
All right, you guys. I will check out. Great to
Bye,
see y'all.
everyone.
Great to meet you guys. I work for CanCraft Absolute Extracts.
Oh,
If
there you
anybody's
go.
ever interested on the cannabis side,
Really?
yeah, I'm the brand director for the cannabis
Awesome.
stuff
Yeah, that
at
would be a fun
ABS.
thing to do as well. We
Yeah.
definitely talked about doing some of that when he was doing wine tours. There was some talk about him driving and doing like bringing people up for cannabis tours.
Yeah.
And kind of-
Totally, obviously, weird time now. Not exactly trying to take
Sure.
anybody anywhere, but
we could do some fun stuff for sure.
yeah, definitely would love to connect on content. Would
That'd
you
be
actually? Would you guys mind shooting me an email at
Not at all.
jrowan@cancraft.com?
I think we have your email. from
Yeah, since you
registration,
registered,
so
we'll find you
we'll
on
find
there.
you. Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks,
sweet.
James.
Wonderful. Great to meet
Anyone
you.
else who's hanging out have any questions before we start losing our makers to go live their lives? Jay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Marco, you talked about the distribution in Chicago. I want to know more about the inner working politics of that.
Oh, of distributing in Chicago?
Yeah, like you were talking about how you were having troubles with that, where the
Or no,
where
that
the
might
beer
have been
was
Bear.
being.
Was that you, Marco, or was that Bear Republic?
Well, it's definitely, it's definitely on the Charbay side. We do have our challenges with Illinois. We're a super small brand. I don't live there, and if you don't have someone on in the market selling your product every single day, you have the opportunity, you have the possibility of kind of getting lost in the book. And so it is hard for us, and it's hard for our distributor, because if you don't, like I said, if you don't have someone, constantly showing your brand to everybody in the market, then somebody else is going to be in the market doing their sales and pushing their brand. So we don't have a ton of distribution in Illinois and Chicago.
And Marco, I'll send
the other thing I'd add to that is right now, living in weird times, for better for now is that the local states have loosened restrictions on distribution and delivery and things. All I would encourage everybody to do is to pay attention to the brands that they're buying and who makes them. because I think it's gonna be real hard to put the genie back in the bottle on a lot of this direct to consumer stuff. So make sure that you're buying from who you think you're buying from.
Yeah.
And local is great, but independently owned is also
Even better.
better. So folks like Charbay and local to you is key.
So
Yeah, I
Jake,
mean,
take a
people
look at
throw the
actually
word.
who qualifies for federal relief money would actually probably be a good litmus test to determine whether or not you should buy from them. Because in Chicago right now, I will tell you, I just don't have what Heineken has in terms of their beer representation. And you know who owns that brewery that's out here from Sonoma County in Chicago. It's just one of those things that how do you manage it on a national and global level? So maybe at some point in time, those will be things that we can talk about. Distribution for spirits is just wacky because
Crazy.
we could do a whole podcast on all
Totally.
this stuff because I was told by some very, very big companies that live in my backyard here in Sonoma County that there's a ton of gatekeepers, and those gatekeepers have many keys to get where you're going, and the dilemma is the small guy is restricted. So that's all. So it's all about education. And I feel like we're going back to like 1995 when I started. It's about teaching people where it came from and how you play the game.
Yeah,
Know
we
your
honestly,
brewer, know
especially
your
with
distiller.
Yep. Know
especially
your
with
brewer, know your distiller.
Yep.
yeah, and especially with spirits, there's a lot of like misleading marketing out there with beer as well. But we have a whole article on our website that's like how craft is that bottle you're drinking, and it kind of breaks down the whole spectrum of really, really craft to just buying juice and throwing a label on it, right? And like all the different variations between. And so it is for a consumer, it's challenging and it's tricky.
Yeah.
But if you can figure out
Recognizing
that
that's
independently owned, and I always say a level of art with the science. So like I was saying before, if someone's just pressing a button and going home for 2 days and then like all of a sudden magically their product is there, that's probably not like fully craft. Like there is usually some hands-on element to assessing and like real-time quality control and really like being in the weeds of it a little bit more.
Because
too.
of all the variability that was discussed today with
Yeah.
hops and with malt and with the heads and the tails, there's always a moment when someone that's there and is present can discern and assess for their brand and for what they're trying to make, when to make a decision. And not making a decision is also making a decision. And so the hands-on component is very much an integral part of what the Crafty Cask, espouses to be craft.
Yeah, for sure.
Would you share that link that you just talked about?
Yeah, I will. I'll share that link right now. I'll find it. And then also, Marco, I'll shoot Jenny an email, but there's an online distributor that's Illinois only right now for craft spirits.
Oh, really?
They were called Big Fish Spirits. Now they're called Spirit Hub, and they're just focused in Illinois. They're hoping to expand more broadly, but they are doing online spirit sales for Illinois specifically.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, they're really fun to work with. So
I heard a tragic tale about Illinois specifically with regard to distribution of alcohol, not just with spirits or any kind of particular type of alcohol, but apparently there was a lawyer there that got his hands on, I don't know, I guess tax forms, and started suing on behalf of or under the name of the state of Illinois, anybody that he found to be non-compliant in his eyes with recouping taxes for the state of Illinois for purchases made by people that lived in the state of Illinois. And basically, producers just stopped shipping to Illinois because they didn't want to become liable. And predatory stuff like that is also faulting or to be faulted for.
I can't even do that. It's like we have to use a distributor, and getting getting attention with a distributor is a big challenge for us, because
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, up till 2001 it was mom, dad, and me, no employees. Now we're a big team of 7 people.
50 different fiefdoms in the United States.
Yeah. So Jay, I don't know, man. I would love to. I wish I could rattle off a couple spots, where we have some more product, in Chicago. It's just super hard.
Oh, I'm in Washington, but I grew up in Chicago. But I'm always interested on the gatekeepers and what prevents things from getting the market, and any friction that it takes from business getting their product in the hands of consumers. And so I find that interesting.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of friction in
distribution
spirits
laws
in
are
particular.
crazy. Distribution laws are wild, but it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of it will protect small producers and prevent major producers from flooding the market, controlling retailers. I don't pretend to be an expert on any of that, but all I can say is look at your label, and beyond the label, because it doesn't always tell you who's making what product. Just know your brewer, know your distiller, know your winemaker, know your cider maker, and there's a lot of crazy behind the scenes stuff.
Hey, Roger, I'm curious to get yours and Rich's opinion. Historically, breweries have not shipped direct to consumer, and I actually don't think that's a regulation kind of thing. I think it's more of the belief that like fresh beer is the best beer, and that's the way to enjoy it. And if by the time I ship it to you and all that, and I'm just curious, with the current environment we're in today, are you guys are you thinking differently about that? That maybe shipping beer direct to consumer might be something you want to figure out and pursue and do all that, or not really?
We've done things like we had a barrel program where we did direct to consumer, but we also have partners, distributor partners that we make sure that they have fresh beer, and that they're delivering fresh beer to retailers, and it's for us, it's a partnership. So we want to respect that and make sure that we're protecting them, and they're protecting us. So
yeah, it's hard to do this thing without pissing off someone else over here.
Roger just said the best. Roger honestly said it the best. I mean, I hate to say it today, but I was literally called by a state senator today about that issue, because we're fortunate that we are older and we have distribution networks that allow us to sell in chains. Right. And that's where a lot of beer sales and alcohol sales are happening today. And those are controlled networks. And the independent market is going to be, just look at the BA's article today. So, or yesterday, I think it was. Right. And unfortunately, what do you do? I don't know. We play both sides of the fence, honestly. And the challenge is that Roger started to say it. We've done both sides, and so it's a big challenge, and it's about the gatekeepers, right? And so we're old school. That's what people say. That's what they've been saying for a long time. We're old school. That's what they use to market against us. But unfortunately, old school is selling beer at your supermarket, and that's what's keeping us going right now.
Right.
Honestly. And additionally, old school is reliant on the existing 3-tier distribution model that is, frankly, antiquated, dated, and the people in the pinch point there, the distributors, the fact that there's a relatively small number of distributors that control the flow of this product to the retail locations that exist out there. If you don't have something that they want, or they think they will appeal to a mass number of people, the likelihood of them picking that up is pretty slim. You know, Racer 5, sure, everybody would love to have Racer 5. Any distributor, any, you know, nationwide distributor and
But it sounds
nationwide
like not
retailer.
even, right? It sounds
What?
like they're saying kind of not necessarily.
The thing that I would say about that is
Every nationwide distributor should have Racer 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just have a second to.
The thing that I would say about that is that the 3-tier system also protects small manufacturers.
For sure.
And the reality is even in the top 10 of the BA craft list, those guys would not be able to defend against a full frontal assault from the big dogs, the real big dogs.
It is interesting.
So-
There was the
so
whole.
It's a big balancing act, and I don't want to get in the weeds, but I'm sure that Marco and we have different opinions and different thoughts, but yeah, you know, for me as a beer drinker and a spirits drinker, all I want to do is be able to get all the cool things that I can get, but I also need to be cognizant of the fact that we're going to protect small producers as well, because that's where innovation comes from.
Yeah, there was the whole. There's a local distillery here that actually does this trend. It's Seven Stills here in San Francisco, and they almost exclusively distill all of their whiskey from craft beers, and they partner with different craft breweries, and it's a really fun thing. And they just recently got their hand slapped pretty darn badly with big fines and had to close down some of their locations for posting on social media in a way that is not allowed based on the TTV and all like the advertising kind of methods. And there was a really interesting article, to your point, Roger, that while like it all kind of seems like bullshit, like what do you mean I can't tell you where I'm doing a tasting? That's like crazy. There was some really good logic in the article that I was reading about, yes, but like if we could all do that, the people with the deepest pockets and the people with the most money would win all of those games. And so while it feels really punitive to small craft producers, there's actually some benefit to the small craft producers too. And so it's just like a bad situation.
And at the same time, right now, unfortunately, some of the people with the biggest and deepest pockets are these massive distributors, and the power and the sway that they hold is not conducive to consumers getting the things that they want to get, because the distributors don't feel like there is enough demand for those things, and it's not
It's a
worth
little
their
chicken
time.
or the egg. It's a little chicken or the egg, for sure.
It's a pendulum that's
And that's
swinging.
why, as part of the Crafty Cask, we're always like, when you go to bars, ask for those craft makers that you want. When
So
you go to
important.
stores, ask for those craft makers that you want. Like, keep asking, keep asking, keep asking, because consumers actually have power there. If the stores, if the restaurants, if the bars think that like everyone wants Charbay all of a sudden, guess what? They're going to go figure out how to get Charbay, right?
If everybody wants Bear Republic,
right,
and they just went to an online tasting and learned about Racer 5,
right?
Yeah.
Tell the people that provide the things that you want the things that you want.
Right, and that you're annoyed that you can't get them. That's what we can do as consumers, at least.
But what
No, I totally agree with you guys. You know what? Roger talked about not getting in the weeds, and I think he's dead on with this. The weeds it's a little different between distribution and marketing, but in general, it's sort of the same thing. You know, you hit it really good with the Seven Stills thing, where it's like we have a lot of rules, and yes, a lot of things are being lightened right now, but in general, it's a personable thing, right? We want to support local. We want to help out local, but we also want to support people that we know. And you know, I mean, you know, knowing Marco, it's like, yeah, of course, you know, I'm going to go out of my way for him, as it were. And so it's that thing where I think you guys had it right. You want to look for that, like the craft within the craft, as it were.
Yeah.
To make sure that you're not getting that marketing, because I mean, you see it even on the TV where it seems crafty, but that's marketing, as opposed to, you know, sitting here and having a beer with Rich and with Roger and with Marco. And, you know,
Full disclosure, he's our social media manager right there.
Yeah. His last
I'm the
name
marketing
is
guy for
Gordon.
Bear Republic, by the way. So
Yes, John. Yes.
So
No, but you're right.
Hey guys, I love you all. I've got 2 kids that are ready for bed.
Please.
You gotta be on. You gotta take care of them tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Good luck.
Yep.
Classes.
Thanks for being
Right.
here, Roger. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for sharing your
everyone who came.
insights.
Yeah.
Super fun.
That's it. Great. This was
Thanks,
awesome.
Roger.
Let's do it
Catch
again
you
next
later.
week.
Marco, give Jenny and the kids a hug. Let's do this
Yeah.
again sometime with a different theme.
Thank you.
Peace out, homies.
Guys, bye everyone.
I should probably head home too.
Yeah.
James, I thought you were leaving like 20 minutes ago. What
Yes,
happened?
okay. Well, I didn't realize all the people were still on the fucking call.
out and back in to Jay.
I don't know. I was on my phone. All right. If anybody's sending me feed stuff, I guess hit me up.
No.
For
Take
sure.
care, you guys. Have a
Guys,
good
what
night.
you're doing is
Wait, is this the cool guys now? We all hang out?
Yes, I'm gonna be
It's
down here.
Insiders
Only
Club.
the cool people.
It's the
that-
Insiders
that are,
Club.
Like a
Right.
little bit later. Yeah, if you just like didn't leave, it's a little bit cooler.
It gets a little crazier. We get a little drunker, you know.
11 o'clock rolls around. We're like, whoa.
Virtual loiterer.
I hope somebody taped it. This, you guys.
Yeah, it's recorded. It's totally recorded, and we're gonna throw it up on YouTube.
Oh shit!
and
This is recorded.
Perfect.
Parody.
Marco, you were great. You were so good.
All right, so I'm gonna leave my last statement, and then I'm gonna go too, because I'm gonna watch.
Do it.
My kids are waiting for me for dinner too, but they're 18 and 20, so.
They're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They ordered pizza already.
Drinking
They're
out
fine.
on the patio. It's been great.
You're gonna watch Tiger King. We know it.
Exactly. Jay, we love you. We're going back to an older time when I first started in 1992, 1993, where we're educating people and we're allowing people to create those relationships. That's truly what you guys are doing with what you put out tonight. And I think that is not controllable. I don't really care what anybody says about who's buying from who and who's buying from what. It's not controllable.
Yeah.
You guys are doing the greatest thing that you could do right now. And
Thank
we're
you.
learning in a new environment how we control our message.
Yeah.
And our message is supposed to be about who is our fans, right? I'm a fan of racing and so many other things, but what we haven't done is we haven't created fans for this. And my son sits and watches all these things. He's 18, he finally decided, I mean, it's crazy. My life has just been nuts. I got a 21-year-old who is just left Scotland because she had to leave quickly. We could write a book about all this stuff, and she will.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my 18-year-old's a senior. You know, he spent his whole damn life trying to figure out how to be a great baseball player. In his senior year, he doesn't get to play, you know, third base. Now he just made a choice to go to college. So that generation has been living with this type of technology, which I'm trying to figure out every single day. So keep educating people. That's your job. Help me send the message to people about what we do and who we are and where we're at and why we're special. And that will be very hard to regulate. So there you go. That's my message. You guys are doing a great thing.
Rich.
Keep it up.
And
I appreciate everything you're doing about it. And yeah, there you go. So Marco, I got to figure out where we're going to put that still at some point. I'm waiting for an instruction manual from Scotland. So we'll get that thing rolling. And I love you, brother. And
Yeah, buddy.
Can we talk soon? You know, I know I've been stressed because I'm trying to figure out how the hell I deal with a company that, you know, I'm waiting for Gavin to figure out what we're doing, and then we'll go from there. So, guys, we'll see you, and cheers, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good, Rich.
Thank you, Rich. We'd
Cheers,
love to
Rich.
have you
We'll see
anytime,
you.
different
Yeah.
theme, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a big old double chin, the wife said. So we'll see. Cheers.
Oh, you're great.
Oh,
Cheers.
you're hanging over there.
Beard hides the
Guys,
chin.
guys,
Yeah,
I
that's
got to
the
roll
secret.
too. I better get going.
Of course, Marco.
Yeah,
go,
also, there
go.
were
Thank you
a
so
lot
much.
more people on
Phil,
this
or your
weekend than I
children,
thought.
whatever.
So
Whatever's more pressing.
a lot more people tuned in. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Jennifer.
Have a good one, Marco.
See ya. Bye, Jen. Bye, Justin. Hey, John. See
So
ya.
much for being here, guys.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. It's great
Means
seeing
the
you.
world to us.
Love y'all.
Yeah, truly. Yeah, hey man, thanks Suzanne. You guys are crushing it. This was absolutely fantastic. I just
Cool.
I wanted
Thanks,
to
Tom.
get my 2 cents in with this, and I know you probably hear it every time you have one of these towards the end, but this is absolutely amazing. I'm so glad we did this. It's
Thank you,
good
Tom.
to
Yeah.
see people who care. It's good to see community. And you know what? In a digital age, in a world where we have such connection and so much communication, local is plus or minus the circumference of this planet. So it's fantastic to see people from disparate locations sort of coming together for this sort of a thing and sharing in product and brand and in quality and just having a good time. This was amazing.
Yeah.
Let's
Thank
get
you.
stoned together.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that we'll build enough of a community during this that people will be interested not just to show up for brands that they already love and they already know, but they'll be like, oh, I don't know anything about mezcal. I'm going to go do this mezcal tasting, right? And that we'll just start to build a community where we all know each other and we can all kind of geek out because we just like craft booze and we like to
know
drink.
that we're like
And-
of a similar mindset.
Yeah.
That like the same things are important, and we can all support different people in
Yeah.
different avenues. And we actually have a mezcal tasting coming up.
Yeah,
So
we do, totally.
No,
Um,
I think it's fantastic, and to be honest, I see that you guys have them scheduled on Thursdays, and it's this thing where within a few minutes of being on here, I was like, all right, well, now I got to pay attention, and I got to make sure to try to get my hands on the stuff you guys are going to do next Thursday when I go out this weekend, and so it's that thing where it really drives.
Yeah, and we're going to play around with that. Yeah, and to be honest, John, we're going to play around with that. We started with Thursday because we were like Thirsty Thursday. That feels like a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But right now, we might start doing some Saturday ones as well. I don't think outside of coronavirus, Saturday nights will work typically, but I think, Saturdays right now, we're all at home. It's Saturday
Sure.
night. Why not like hang out and talk booze? And then we
No,
might
that's
start
totally
doing
fair.
ones too. So we'll see. We'll see. We have a lot of makers right now, and we're already scheduled out through mid-May.
yeah, we feel like we're staggered too far out
Yeah, we
for the
kinda-
urgency that some of the producers
need
that we've
support.
been talking to. So
Yeah.
we want to start looking at doing this more than once a week.
Yeah. So we'll see. But we're excited.
I
and we
think
hope
that's
to
a
build-
fantastic idea. I mean, so last Friday we did our first. So we have taps at the brewery that we all go to, after work and whatever. And so last Friday, I hosted all of the Bear on a Zoom meeting for us
Cool.
to have like a Friday at the taps kind of happy hour thing for Bear Public
Awesome.
employees. And I get when I started the idea, it's sort of hard to explain. When I started doing it and I put out the invite, it was like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to see what happens. And by the end, it was just, it turned into like an hour and a half thing, even though it's supposed to be 30 minutes, and it's that idea that like we can have this community. We can have this virtual digital community with distance. And especially for you guys, that you guys are doing this and it's nationwide, and hearing about people talking about Illinois and Wisconsin, and Utah, and all these other locations I've seen come up on the side there. It's absolutely fantastic.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, we're excited about it too.
Craft
And
feel not so local, which I like.
yeah, exactly. And that's where part of my question was coming about our brewers starting to think more about shipping direct to consumer, because while I love that it's like drink local with craft beer, it's also like I've had some great craft beers across the country that it'd be really cool if I could like have regularly in my fridge, and that's not super easy
worldwide,
to do
dude.
nowadays.
You're totally right. I've had like small batch craft beers in like Scotland and in England, or in Germany that are just absolutely amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And I would love to see a time when we sort of break those barriers with regard to craft, you know,
Yeah.
with regard to locality, as it were. And it's
Well,
hard.
and it's funny. We were just talking about this today, where we were like, I get it. I get that, like, as the brewer, it's really important that if you drink it fresh, that's the best experience. But at the same time, when I go and buy a Racer 5 downstairs at my grocery store, it might sit in my fridge for 2 weeks if I buy a 12 pack. And like, I enjoy that 12th beer just as much as I enjoy that first beer. Like,
Yeah.
most consumers aren't that in tune that like they're like noticing that slight fall off, So I think there's a little bit of, that could just grow brands and grow businesses faster.
And there's room,
No.
especially, I'm sure, as you know, John, like, actually, well, yeah, we've got one right here.
Yeah.
Since craft beer has found comfortability canning things,
Yeah, for sure.
The reliability of freshness has definitely increased. And
Totally. And I mean, you know what? A 5-gallon keg's even more stable. So,
sure.
and Roger briefed on this a little bit. There's a function of quality that sort of overrides even this desire for locality, right? And it's that, and you hit it right on. It's that freshness thing where you want to make sure that you're providing fresh beer, but you also want to make sure the stability supports time for shipping and time for a consumer to consume it. A 24-pack gets consumed over a longer period of time than a 12-pack or a 6-pack or a single serve 22-ounce bottle or 16-ounce can. So it's not necessarily that it's hard, but it's a very different way of approaching beer. You know what I'm saying?
Feel like, yeah, for sure. And I also feel like, to an extent, there's an element of the craft beer scene that's very much focused and localized around the tap room. And drawing that sense of local community has, for a lot of producers, been the primary goal, and has been very successful in building a brand for many of these craft beers that exist out there, that have, fortunately for them, if that's their goal, been able to elevate to this point of national recognition where they're able to be purchased. Maybe that's their goal, maybe it's not, but getting to that level started at the tap room, and focusing on that is not a bad thing, of course, but of course it's also not necessarily the only way to go.
No, I totally agree with you. In general, I feel like from a marketing standpoint, it's easier to say, hey, try this beer, and I hand it to you, and I have the opportunity to see your face when you taste it, and to witness your reaction and to read your body language. It's that thing where, especially nowadays, and especially right now with the Rona and all this, we're so on social media, and we consume so much data, and so many things are vying for our attention, but we sort of forget the value of some of the less linguistic sides of communication, right? It's that when you walk into a pub. Just recently, I started going to this local place in Windsor, and like 2 weeks before all this started, sort of recently, and it was this thing where I walked in, and immediately it was, oh my God, I love this. This is great. Look at this over here. Look at this over here. Oh, let me try this beer. And I tried oh man, I probably tried every beer they had on tap. I'm going to be honest with you. But yeah, I wasn't driving, so it wasn't my problem. But, it's that thing where you get to have that truly connective conversation.
Totally.
And we get that sort of through Facebook and Instagram and Reddit and whatever, TikTok and all, whatever the young people are doing nowadays. It's so
Yeah,
confusing.
I haven't even, I don't know about you, John. I'm in social media too, obviously, but I haven't even I'm just ignoring TikTok because I don't have the bandwidth for it.
It's safer. It's safer. You know, I have this thing where I'm just like, oh, I should figure out how this works. And then like the old man in the back of my head is just like, you know what? Who cares what these young people are doing? You know?
But to your point, like that recognition of where connectivity comes from,
For sure.
when you're talking about building a community, it makes sense that the craft beer world has, rallied around the tap room.
Yeah.
Because the people are there, they're in person, they can do exactly what you said, hand someone a beer and see their reaction, see their visual, body, something other than their words, their linguistic response.
Exactly.
Facilitating that outside of the norm that has currently existed for the craft brew world is a hurdle. And
that's what we're trying to figure out with these a little bit, because even tonight was amazing and we're so thrilled with how tonight went. But it would be nice to get everyone to taste something at the same time and watch all of their reactions.
Yeah.
And then have them all chime in about what they thought and what their it's a little hard to do virtually, but it's way better than them just commenting on a Facebook post. And so I keep joking that before coronavirus, we all felt like we were super connected with our friends and family all across the country by scrolling their Facebook feed, right? And being like, I know what's up, I know what they're doing, I'm in touch with them. And now I'm kind of like, but this is so much better. This is so much better to see their facial expressions, to get to see their the Italian me with my hands going everywhere. It just, it's a different experience, And so it kind of almost brings that tap room experience to you outside the tap room, if you can get people to pre-purchase and be drinking the same thing and all that good stuff. And then on top of it, it's how cool would it be if your friend from North Carolina called you and was like, oh my God, I was just at this brewery and this beer was fucking amazing and you have to try it, and you actually could try it in California. That'd be so cool.
I think you really hit the nail on the head with this one. It's so when you really think about it, anciently, historically, and really across time, beer or in general, anything that's fermented that produces alcohol, beer, wine, cider, mead, distilled spirits, all of that, it's a social thing first.
Totally.
Right? And then it's marketing and business or branding or locality or craft.
Yeah.
All of that is sort of second to the social nature of drinking. And I think that, one of those kind of small points of gleaming light with regard to what's going on right now is that we're being forced to learn new rules for locality and for socialization. And it's that thing where some people are gonna feel more comfortable in this field. Some people want to, I was talking to one of my friends the other day on the phone, and he was just like, man, I can't wait for all this to be over so we can go to a bar and, we can talk and hang out in person and all this. And that's, again, that's that locality that can be resolved through this, right? That can be taught through people getting just comfortable with Zoom or with Teams meetings or something like that. And I think that because of the historical personal layer that exists within alcohol, it's taken time for people to get, and the COVID-19 thing has accelerated this. It's taken time for people to get used to locality as being second fiddle, right? You're used to being, hey, I'm standing 10 feet away from you or 5 feet away from you at a bar, and you guys are still asking these questions and having this conversation, because I've gone to so many like beer education events right through the bear. I've worked for the bear for 10 years, you know, and I've done the like, hey, we're gonna do a tap takeover at this bar and we're gonna have people talk, or we're gonna go to this thing and we're gonna have somebody, you know, give a speech in front of a crowd of people or something like that. But the difference between doing that in a location and doing that here in a digital format functionally is close to zero. It's primarily a social aspect. It's primarily an understanding that you know what, I can see, you know, I can see Jay and I can see Noah and I can see their reactions to what I'm saying, and I can read those reactions, and that way I feel comfortable. And it's because humans, as a generality, right, are social creatures, and we want the feedback. You know, I was watching Nailed It, the last season 4 or whatever, that just came out on Netflix like yesterday. My wife and I finished it, and there was like this little side thing that sort of hit us. I like paused it and was like, all right, we got to break this down and talk about it for a second, where the host who's a stand-up comedian was like, you know what, this is sort of like making jokes on a Zoom meeting where nobody else is able to comment, right? You don't have that audience feedback. And it kind of hit me like a brick, where I was like, that's the thing that I've been trying to get at with social media, that we can't attain unless we're doing this right here. What you guys are hosting is a perfect example of that, where it's distant and it's digital, and there is no true sense of locality. But I get that. I can see that somebody's bored, or I can see that somebody's excited or whatever. And I think that that's the difference is that we need some reminder that what we're saying is being interpreted, read, understood, or whatever. And I think that this sort of a thing is really opening that up. And I think that what you guys are doing is really sort of, even though we're educating people about tonight, Racer 5 and R5 whiskey, we're educating people about the non-locality of socialization, which is so powerful and so important right now, especially.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
thank you. We appreciate that. And I think the other piece I would add into that, I think it's one thing to be a brand and kind of pitch yourself, right? And be like, hey, we're talking about our beer and our beer is amazing and listen about our beer. And like, you know, it's another thing to have a third party who's just like, dude, this beer is fucking amazing. And this is why we love it. And we have the maker here to tell you more about it. And like, it's hard to do that. You know, it's hard to like, just get out there and like push yourself a little bit. And I think and that's one of the reasons we wanted to bring multiple makers together as well, is because it's not just a one-man show. It's not just about Racer 5. It's not just about Charbay. It's about the interplay, and like they're both that type of style, and we're learning at a higher level, and then we're going deep with a couple of examples to bring that higher level example to life. And I don't know, I personally, you know, if I get on a call and I'm just like, it's the one person talking about their stuff for an hour, I get a little like, all right, I'm being pitched to, I'm being sales, like, you know, and it just, so I think there's something to that as well that makes people feel a little more relaxed and a little more like, it's all right that I'm drinking something else. It's all right. Like, I'm not showing up to a Racer 5 event. Like, I'm showing up to an event and I can drink whatever beer and whiskey I have. And like, and now I want to go buy those beers and whiskeys though. And, you know, so.
And there is an element of specificity to the event. And it's, of course, the idea of overarching, like, despite the theme of this particular event, it's the theme of craft.
Craft, for sure.
And the theme of appreciation, recognition, support of, you know, the people that are deserving of it.
Yeah.
Heineken's going to be fine through all of this.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine.
Right.
Absolute, they're going to be okay.
Yeah. But these small makers like need our support, you know, and so.
And I think there are, fortunately, there's been a sea change in the last 10 years, and there's a lot of interest and appreciation and dedication to these producers. And the people that are
How
in
has
the
the market share gone for the big guys, your Miller Lights, your Coors, and stuff like that? Because I feel like I have, out of all the beer that I've had at a bar over the course of a year, I want to say that maybe 5 to 10% is going to be a big time Coors, Budweiser, Miller Lite kind of thing.
And I'd say you're relatively rare. Like
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think most
Really?
people.
Okay.
I think probably 80% of people out there are drinking mainstream mass brands, even if they're at a place that has an amazing craft selection. They just don't know what they don't know. They don't know.
Have I been in
so
the San
they-
Francisco bubble for too long?
No.
Definitely
You
have.
know what? You'll see the same thing in SF, man. You know what? I do a lot of beer fests, and the frequency with which, somebody comes up and they get to the front of the line. They give me their glass. I'm about ready to fill it, and I'm like, "What do you guys want? What do you want? What do you guys want? Whatever." And they're like, "What do you have that's like whatever like mainstream brand you're looking for?" And I don't necessarily think that it's a feature of like they're a Coors Light fan through or something like that. But I think it's a comfort thing, right?
Yeah.
When you go to a bar, and
Know what they
especially
know.
it's like, if you're from SF, you go to a bar in San Diego, maybe something real small, real divey or something like that. All right, they're not going to have any of your local stuff. So you don't know what's going on, right? You're kind of at like the next level with regard to craft drinker. If you're like, you know what, that guy looks all right, fuck it, I'm gonna drink that, right? That's way more rare than it should be, truly than it should be. But oftentimes you'll see somebody at a bar, and you observe this when you do tap takeovers and stuff. When somebody goes up to order a beer, and the bartender's like, hey, such and such company's doing a tap takeover, we're doing this thing. What do you want to try from them? Because they're trying to push, we're trying to push. Everybody's in on the fucking stick or whatever. But they're like, I know Coors. And it's the same thing. It's like, if you're a Coors person or you drink Coors regularly, you're not going to try a Bud product.
Right.
Right?
Totally. But you might
just a craft, not craft, like, fight. It's
But
just
you might try something
fight.
that isn't familiar to you, that someone recommends to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's where the work comes in, of educating the staff and educating the bar and educating them to like be able to say, oh, you normally like Blue Moon? Let me show you this, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and in general, giving the public that, because you get that, you've got the public crowd that just doesn't know craft beer, so it's uncomfortable. But you also have the public crowd that has had maybe one bad experience, and or you know what, I always go to the same bar. I always order the same thing. My wife and I were just recently in Tahoe, a couple months back, and this local restaurant they did what was that shot in a pint that they were doing? It was Jaeger and Budweiser. Yeah, that's what it was. It was Jaeger and Budweiser. Dude, we were there for an hour. I swear to God, we had 25 people come through the bar, not the restaurant, just the bar. Come in, hey, special, Jaeger and Bud, pound both, and then they're out. Because they're so used to the rhythm of it, right? The normality of that they would never even try. And this bar had a pretty good.
Their blinders aren't even open. Yeah.
They don't even know. And that's really where the education comes from. That's where this comes from. That's beneficial, is that you have the opportunity to be like, hey, here are descriptors. Here are things that you know. One of my favorite things to do at a beer fest, and this is just like a personal thing that I've learned over years of going to beer fest and stuff, is every booth I walked over, it's like, what's the weirdest beer you have? What's the most unnormal product you have? That's what I want to try, because I like the experience of it. I'm going to tell you what, sometimes not the smartest move. Right? Not everything's a winner. That's just the way it is. And that's fine, right? You have to expect that from a statistics standpoint.
Yeah, for sure.
It's you need to get your sort of like, your base, that 80% that drink main brands, the name brands, to give it a chance, you know? And you know, I mean, my dad's a Coors Light guy, but as soon as I started working at the Bear and started handing him beers, you know, he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. And he swears by not loving hoppy beers. And there are like 3 or 4 hoppy Bear Republic beers that he loves.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, he doesn't think they're hoppy.
Right.
You know,
it's about
and again,
balance.
It's the balance. It's the education. It's the craftiness of it. You know, he's had a couple of super hoppy crafty beers, so he assumes every IPA is a super hoppy crafty beer, or all IPAs are just worse, even though you can have. I've had doubles that are more balanced than single.
Right.
You know, so it's that getting out of that comfort zone.
John, I have to ask, because I know your last name is the same as the family that's Bear Republic. So how are you connected to all of this?
It's not so complicated, I promise. So Ricardo, Rich, who was on the call earlier, that's my cousin. His father is my uncle. My dad is his father's brother. You know how cousins and them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm part of the Norgrove family, and you know, I've had the opportunity, and I started as a host at the restaurant 10 and a half years ago. You know, sitting people at tables and stuff.
So have you had your cousin's charcuterie that he's making with the Spence?
Oh, it's so good, man. Let me tell you what.
I emailed
so
Rich.
Amazing. I want more, and if I can't get more, we'll see what happens.
Because when he was first making it, I happened to be up there at the time, and he gave me a bag of like all 6 of them. And I came home with a bag of like 6 charcuterie, and I was like, Ev, look what I got.
And we like gorged ourselves for like a few weeks, and then we're like rationing out like little slivers.
Yeah.
I email Rich like once every 6 months. I'm like, dude, is your son doing this again? Where's the sausage?
Where is it?
You know what, man? Sam's a hell of a fucking pig racer, dude. The stuff that he's doing, like real talk. I've talked to Sam about like raising chickens at my house and stuff. The kid's super knowledgeable. He totally knows what he's doing, and those charcuteries are so good, you know. And it's that we found somebody that's local, that we're into, that makes something that we love, and then we're like, hey, let's pair up with that, and we went from there. I remember, you know, walking past the conference room and being like, hey, there's a bunch of stuff being cut up in here. What's going on, man?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
You know, like going in there and tasting other products they've made and stuff. And you know, we partnered with a company that did some hot sauce with some of our beer, you know, and obviously partnering with Marco. And it's that thing. I have a rule when I cook, right? And you can ask my wife a million times. I say it every time. She's probably tired of hearing it. But it's that if you can use water, fuck it, let's use beer or something that's better. You know?
Totally.
There should never be an ingredient in the way that you cook that isn't something that you would individually or separately want to eat or drink.
To eat or drink on its own. Right.
You know, I mean, I used Big Bear, our hoppy stout, our imperial stout. I used Big Bear Black Stout and some apple cider vinegar to marinate ribs yesterday for like 24 hours.
Nice.
You know? So it's that thing where there's so many opportunities with it, and there's so many things that are out there, but we just gotta, you know, find that connection, come together, you know, whatever it is, so that way we kind of have that delicious, crafty experience, as it were.
Well said. Yeah. I'm gonna take this opportunity to jump out, guys, but the chat was great.
Yeah, we're
Appreciate
gonna have to
that.
shut it down too. We need to go eat some food. We've been drinking and not eating at all. Oh god.
Yeah, I
That
can
sounds
hear
bad
the
idea.
ribs calling me.
But
Oh,
John,
that
if you have
sounds so
other
good.
ideas for ways we can support Bear Republic, like let me know. We'd be happy to do more of these with different themes and different angles and like all that kind of stuff. Like it, yeah, we love you guys. So we're happy to support.
I'll totally reach out to you guys.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Cheers.
Bye everyone. Have a
All
good
right.
night.
Y'all.